Hello everybody, Darren here, and welcome back to Satisfactory. Now this is part 4, the final part of my Copper and Caterium mega build. In this video we're going to be adding the Caterium part and powering both the Copper and Caterium together to make some of the final components in vast quantities. A build this large has many issues for people following along. Even with these super long in-depth videos, a lot still has to be cut out, but I'm happy to provide my save file now for this build so that people can find everything they need to, as well as all that supplemental files to do with the logic maps, the calculations, the blueprints. It can all, of course, be found in the description for free. Just to mention as well that I don't intend on future videos being this long. The idea is going to be that we'll go back to normal builds now and start progressing through the game again with oil and other things on the horizon. But first off, I want to just have a thank you to this week's sponsor, as a video of this size with all that extra material just really isn't justifiable on its own. I really had a great response to the sponsor last time, with many people telling me that they're really enjoying the game. So, what is it? Well, have you ever watched a sci-fi movie where you see thousands of ships duking it out in battle and wondered, how the hell did this all come together? How does the economy work, and how long did it take them to mine it, build it, and deploy them? Are there competing companies vying for power and dominance on some galactic market somewhere? Well, it turns out yes, and that's what Prosperous Universe is. It's an ultra-realistic economic simulator set across the galaxy. It's online, it's free, and it can be played in your browser. Every resource and commodity is provided by real people. You start with your own company and can decide in this sandbox to mine resources, design ships, deliver and trade, play the stocks, all in a massive player-driven economy. Every price is determined by supply and demand on a real-time exchange, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's crazy ambitious. The game is free to play, but there's an optional purchase of a pro license that gives you some more advanced features, which are more geared towards mid to late game players. You interact with the game through a customizable UI called Apex, allowing you to focus on what you want, as you can be a cutthroat CEO, a political leader, an explorer on the fringes, or just some guy mining a desolate planet keeping things local. So go check it out at prosperousuniverse.com, and please do click the link in the top comment or the description, which will take you right there, but it'll just let them know that I sent you. Thanks again to Prosperous Universe for sponsoring this video. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as per usual with this factory, we have a tremendous amount of things to do. So over on the right hand side of the screen, we have the beginnings of our to-do list, the truck station rework, along with setting up new truck routes. I'll talk about this in just a minute, but just as we go through the rest of the list, we're going to be doing a big focus on Caterium, the belt release system, the water extractors, the refineries themselves, and then all of their logistics. Thankfully, they're designed in the same way that the copper is, so it's just a matter of putting it all down so we can kind of get a refresher on how that was done and just do it for a smaller set of machines this time around. Then we move up a floor to do the assemblers and their logistics. And then we gotta also decide where are things gonna go. So some of the materials that haven't been assigned to any machines, some of the leftover copper, maybe want to send it into recycling, send it into some awesome sinks until we later on designate it to do something. And then also just generally, where are these things gonna go? I had said before we were gonna send everything into truck stations and then send it to a larger transport hub, but the volume is actually so high of the output, especially for things like Wire and Quickwire. You get a huge amount out of the machines. I think it's best to go with trains, but trains are a little later down the line, so we'll just set that up so it's ready to go, and obviously we'll just visit this factory anytime we need anything. Then in future, when we actually build a factory that requires Quickwire as part of, an ingredient for a recipe, load it onto the train and send it over that way. And also maybe a central storage we talked about as well. We can just pile all those things into the center in future also. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's begin our truck station rework and then start drawing out these fresh routes. So why do we need to do this? We just did it in the previous episode. What's wrong with the current truck stations as we currently have them? Technically nothing. If we just look at the raw gameplay, this place works totally fine. I actually ran several trucks. I think I added something like 12 trucks just coming and going into this place, crossing paths on the roads, all coming in here. Everything worked totally fine until I was in the area and I looked at it myself. So, for anyone familiar with quantum mechanics, there's this kind of like, just to make it super simple, this famous thing where it's like, if you look at the experiment, it changes the outcome. And that's kind of how trucks work in this game. That's kind of how game development works in general. So if you're not looking at something in a game, typically it's just running in the background and it's not being rendered on your screen. It's a cost-saving measure, no point rendering something if you're not looking at it.
things that need to happen, though, in the world still logically go through their computations in the background, so your CPU is always, generally active, but the GPU is just rendering what's right in front of you. In fact, right behind you in the game, nothing's there. At least not for the GPU. It only sees it as soon as right the second before you see it. Not even the second, the millisecond before you see it. And it's kind of similar with the trucks. The trucks, if you're not in their immediate vicinity, they're not behaving, their physics isn't there. They're just going from waypoint to waypoint mathematically in the background. And that's why they run totally fine, provided you could have done the route yourself. So as long as you've drawn a route and connected it, the game goes, hey, a player has done this, they've completed the route, it must be possible, save all the waypoints, and then away it goes. And it just runs in the background, totally fine, and it runs like clockwork. It actually has a very exact timer on it then. It doesn't deviate very much at all. That changes if you're in the area and you observe the experiment. If you arrive to a place and you watch the trucks actually unloading and loading at your various stations, or you watch them crossing paths, or you watch them coming in and out of gates and things like that, they look really, really janky, more so than ever. And I think that's because the physics has changed in the game, and it's a lot more floaty, and their turning radius is not nearly as sharp as it used to be either. Now, you're still doing that when you're recording the route, at least in this update, but it just seems like there's a added delay to things, and trucks are phasing in and out of walls, they're colliding with each other, they're flying off the road. Things are really chaotic. No pun intended, because the physics engine is called Chaos, I believe. So how do we smoothen that out, right? It works, but it doesn't look great, and you want to be in the area to at least see it functioning. And maybe it's not going to be as nice as a train pulling in, but we want it to be not glitching through walls. So we have to do a bit of a rework. So I've come up with a different blueprint that we can replace these truck stations with, and I'm going to widen out this area by a dramatic amount. And I'm hoping that given that extra space and the extra turning radius and a little bit more space to kind of dock and undock, getting rid of some of these pillars, things will go a bit more smoothly. Like I said, I had built this in the previous playthrough that I did. Never had an issue, and we had plenty of trucks coming in and coming out using them. Now, sometimes they would kind of bump themselves up against the wall and then come out, but that was it. They never phased through, and I just can't take that, I guess, in this one. I think a lot of people would like to see it done right. Now, thankfully, if we didn't have Blueprint Dismantle, I don't think I would have told you to do this, but because we do, we can easily just one-click dismantle all these and then pop them back in. Now, I'm going to move them slightly further out, but they'll still be aligned to where they were before, so they're outputs are still going to line up just fine. I've actually dropped a small crate over there. So what I got to do is just basically remove all of this. I'll pick up these crates in a moment, and then I got to bring out the dimensions of this area. So I'll just do that myself really quickly. Alright, it's as easy as that. So now that the area is being cleared out, we're going to put new foundations back in. But first off, we'll start with the actual truck stations themselves. So I'm just going to build out a little foundation here. Just let me walk down, and we're going to line them up with where they were before, but this time they're going to be pushed out just a little bit further than they were last time. So I'll just hop across to make sure that that's good. Yeah, so as you can see, this is where it ended before, but now it's just one tile further out, so not that much different. And we can just nudge this hopefully into position. That looks about right to me. Kind of hard to tell sometimes, but yep, seems good. We're lined up. Let's commit to it. All right, we'll hop back out. So this one's a much more standard looking truck station, right? It's out in the open. It's just guarded by a road barrier and some modern railing, which I've used in previous episodes out by where we actually build the different mining deposits, right? This is kind of the layout and style I've gone for the truck stations where we load the ore. Now I'll just toggle on blueprint mode, again by pressing R. Just make sure it's facing the right way. Lock that one in. I just need to do this a couple more times. Just going to bring this further down. Now, previously we had 5 in a row. Now I'm just going to have 4. So we're just going to have all the copper on this side, and the Caterium's going to be on the other side. That should make things a little smoother as well with how we drive in and out. Alright, so there's 5 or 4 in total. Alright, now we have to go out to the other side. So I've mapped this out as 15 foundations across, I think. So we're from here. So that's going to be 4. And then this is number 5. So then it's just going to be 10 from here. And just to get a little extra distance, just going to do this for a second. And go underneath just a bit. Because we need to use our blueprints to like snap onto something. So I actually don't want these to line up perfectly with each other. It doesn't really matter if they do. It's not that important, but I actually kind of want them offset. So let's just start somewhere like here. Rotate that around so we're facing out. And it shouldn't be lined up with this, I don't think. But if it is, it's not really that big of a deal. Yeah, it's a little off center. That's good. All right, let's lock that one in then. All right, so that's the width of our entire area for driving in now. You can see much bigger space. And we're going to make use of the center a little bit in terms of lanes. All right, there we go. So we're paved out of our minds now. Asphalt pretty much the whole way down. So what I'm going to do really quickly is just grab this one. And we're going to just double that up. Double it up again. And then I'm out of stuff now. But I'll just remove this actual truck station. And that one as well. And then down here, just double that up one last time. So that's kind of like 4 on this side, 4 on that side in terms of spacing. Anyway, all we actually need on this side is 2 stations. This will be coal, this will be Caterium, and these 4 are going to be our copper deliveries. Alright, so we can get rid of this. The reason I used blueprints here was just to quickly put down the kind of fencing and everything, just make it all pretty quick. Also, it means that we can just delete it in an easier fashion as well. Okay, looking good. So, we have this huge wide area we can work with now. I'm just going to get rid of this. And that was some stuff that we needed before. Cut the street lights for a moment. Alright, so, starting off now, what we're going to do is have a gate. And we'll place it so that it's facing to the left. Right, so the anchor point is here on the right. The gate entrance bit is on the left. We'll just lock that one in, and then give it a little buddy. So these are just automatic gates where if you roll up to them, they just open as far as just that little kind of indent piece there. So it's sort of like a foundation and a half in terms of width that you can get through. Should be totally fine for a vehicle. For a truck, I should say. Right, so we'll pop that one in. Now we're going to go with another one. Here. And here. So that was just one wall. Now we're going to go with 2. This can be, again, 2. And then this will be 2. Might have a doorway or something on one of these as well for us to come in on foot. Okay, so that's the situation. How are we looking? Looking alright. Right, so what we're going to have to do then is start laying this out with patterns. In fact, I might climb a tower just so we can actually see the overall idea here. Alright, so there you have it. The road markings are now in position. I was actually going to talk it through as I was doing each one, but it kind of felt like it was a bit tedious. When we're driving the route, you'll see exactly how it's laid out and why it is the way it is and all of that. But we're not quite done yet. What we still have to do is hook up the belts to our existing belt network. So I just have to basically just reconnect these, kind of similar to how we did before, right? The bottom one connects under, the top one connects over. And that should basically be all we have to do for each one. Now, there will be a slight difference on the coal one, so we'll catch up to that in a moment. Eagle-eyed viewers out there will notice that the truck station designs are just a little bit different than they were before, and that is the fact that we have a floor hole now. Now, the floor hole is connected into the fuel input, and that fuel input is built into a truck station so it can give fuel to any trucks that are loading or unloading here. So just very quickly, I'm just going to illustrate something that would happen before when driving these various different routes. I could just hook this up to power super quick, and we'll connect that one. Alright, so these are online now. And I'll just say, it doesn't matter if it's load or unload, but we'll just pop 100 fuel in there for the moment. Right, so let me grab one of these trucks and illustrate one of the issues that we were having with that system. Let's just say that we're going to start recording our route. We'll start recording it now, right? So we're dropping our little nodes, and we're going to pull in. And the idea was that this would be a nice checkpoint, that I didn't want trucks to actually stop here. So I'm not pressing F, I'm not loading or unloading, and then I'll drive down to wherever I'm going. Now, I'll just take a moment to... Actually, I think we have to complete the route first before it can... before you'll see the issue. So let's just try to close the loop, complete this route, and then we'll see the issue, hopefully. Alright, path recording complete. This is just a test, and we'll just save that. Okay, so enable autopilot. It's going to probably freak out for a minute, but I've left the nodes on. Now, you'll see that the node here has changed. There is a pause node, and it's a yellow node, which means that it's interacting, or it's going to attempt to interact with this particular truck station. And in doing that, trucks were stopping here to load and unload fuel. Or they were receiving fuel just because they happened to stop here. They weren't actually receiving or unloading anything. But it's a bit messy, bit janky, wasn't much room for it, and you can see things are going in there even though there's nothing to go. It's not feeding in the fuel. That's just an animation for loading its cargo, but there is no cargo, so it still receives the fuel. All of that's fine. And what was happening is trucks will actually form an orderly queue behind one another. They don't collide into each other. They just form an orderly queue because they have a little collision detection system as they're waiting for each truck to pass on through this area. So I thought, okay, cool. What if I was just to get rid of this? Let's see what happens now when the truck makes its route around again. Bearing in mind, there's 93 coal in here. So we'll see if it consumes any of that coal as it goes around now. Alright, the gate's opening. Truck's gonna roll in. And of course it'll struggle on through. The truck station still has 93 coal. So it didn't give it to the actual truck that rolled through. So basically, if you remove that little pause node, then it's not going to refuel the truck. Also, it didn't actually really happen there, but this is another problem that can happen, is trucks will attempt to avoid the bounding box of this station as if it's another vehicle. So remember I said they queue up behind each other? They have a collision detection system. It's another thing they'll do. If they're not actually told to go to a station, but the station might be in the way, they will actively try to navigate around it. And I think that's there probably to avoid hitting other trucks and things that are interacting, and also to just avoid accidental interactions, maybe. But it's just been interesting, kind of checking all that stuff out. So for these reasons, we're not going to use this system. It does work. You can actually just let them interact with it, and they will refuel. So it does work, and I didn't really have any issues with it. But it's just not how I intended. I intended for them to drive straight through, and that's just not what happens. Alright, so I got rid of the nodes. It's actually easy. I just put the truck back down, loaded the path, and then removed it. Okay, so with that in mind, now we're going with a truck station here that's going to receive coal. Right, so a vehicle will unload coal into here. And what I'll have to do now is we're going to create a separate floor hole here. So I'll just get rid of this for a moment. We'll go with the 2 foundation. Floor hole. Oh my god, I'm missing a rod. Hang on. Switch its direction, make it Mark 3. And there we go. So now coal will roll out and go down. So what we'll have to do is, I've moved these stairs over, by the way, from where they initially were. But I need to basically hook this up to every station. So this tree is going to basically have to go. It's in the way. Right, so the way I'm going to do this is, I was thinking of just bringing down a wall. So we want to line up the wall with the floor. So I've actually, don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but every floor I ever build, the wall, the top of a wall is always the same as where you're walking. Okay, because that's how a lot of people get into problems, where they're like, they start building walls from down below, and then they're like, oh, my walls aren't lining up, and they've reported to me that things aren't really lining up. They're a foundation off, or a 1 meter wall off, that kind of thing. So that's a bit of an issue. Here's another little tip for you for free, in case you don't know. So if we use a 1 meter foundation to lock onto the world grid, let's just say we locked on there. I'm holding control, press just default mode, and just put one in. So there we go. Seems fine, right? Don't see anything wrong with that. Let's put in a 2 meter foundation. We'll lock it to the world grid as well. Right, we're locked to the world grid. Bonk. In we go. Does anyone see the problem? They're not aligned in terms of their height. A lot of people have told me that their factories are off by this amount. Some sort of half foundation. Or they've been saying like 0.3 or something. They're not sure. It is indeed a half foundation that you're off. That's because, for some reason, a 1 meter foundation, when it aligns to the world grid, it's using its center point. Like where I'm looking right now, it uses its center point to align to the vertical axis of the world grid, the y-axis. Actually, I think it's the z-axis, technically. But anyway, a 2 meter foundation and a 4 meter doesn't do that. So you can build a 4 meter foundation over here, and these guys will line up, right? So we can do this and this. And now our difference is just 1, right? They have lined up. That's just because I sank this one a bit further down when initially placing it. But you see what I mean? They line up. There's no way of making that happen with the 1 meter foundation. It'll always be off from the 2 and the 4s. This is why we never, ever, ever build with a 1 meter foundation. And you'll see in every video so far, I've always gone with the 2. Now, I never explained that, and I'll be honest, I totally forgot that that's why I do that, but that is the root of why I always start with 2 meters. The other reason, though, is of course that I like to have a different bottom on the foundation than on the top, so I often use 2 meters to lay out a room, and then I'll kind of erode that and put in 2 slabs of 1 meter. And anyway, that's how you stay aligned. I really should have mentioned that in the first episode as being the reason as to why, but I did say always use 2 meters. I did say that. Just didn't tell you why. Anyways, at least we know now before we build any other big factories. Right, so after all my talk about where to start the floors and everything, it's still true, but to make things line up just a little nicer down here, because of the grass creeping through, it's just bothering me ever so slightly. So I'm actually going to raise the foundation here by 1. So we still come down, you know, 2 walls or whatever, but we're actually going to be entering in from a slightly higher point. And I think that'll be okay, because this is kind of like an underfloor logistics thing. I don't think it's really going to impact too much. But as you can see, I already built out this area, and then I realized, like, oh yeah, it's not lining up that nicely. So it should do now. So we'll pop in a splitter. Is that lined to the center? It's actually not. Splitter right there. And then we'll grab this Mark III, bring it down, connect that in. So now another nice thing we can do is actually use ceiling poles that will actually line up. They wouldn't have done so before, so maybe we'll start about here. So there's one, and there's another. Now if we grab this, we can connect it straight in. And it maintains the same height, so that's kind of nice. And then we can get rid of this concrete, perhaps. And maybe just put in a walkway or something, just even a layer down, and then things will line up much nicer. So that's the idea. Alright, so with that all in place now, I think we can remove all this concrete, and it should just be kind of sitting and floating there. Now normally what I'd like to do, or what I like to do, is have some way of getting up to here, you know, with walkways and things. For now, I'm going to leave it, but normally, you know, you want to be able to check everything in your factory and be able to get there. That's why I don't really like burying my leads, you know, the wires or the belts behind things that you can't have access to. Just because I think if you're making a factory, you want to be able to get to everything and also see everything, just to make sure, troubleshoot any little issues that you're having. So this would be a bit unusual for me to remove all this, but we will put a walkway in here in the future. Alright, so I'm going to say that that's truck station rework done. Now we're going to actually draw out the route and make sure that it's working as intended. So we'll do the first route being coal. So let's begin. And then I'm going to talk through how best to drive your trucks, because I had a lot of feedback in my Discord about people having issues with that. So let's see how it's done. Alright, so I'm left-hand drive. It really shouldn't matter, but as long as you follow these principles, you'll be fine. So I'm going to get up to speed and then press Q and hit start recording and then just keep going. So we're dropping nodes right behind me now. Now the camera's going to keep flickering like that because it's getting caught on the street lamps. So what we basically have to do is stay between the lines and take nice, slow, and steady 90-degree turns when we're on the roads. That way, we're not crossing over into someone else's lane. And with the little collision detection system that the trucks have, they should stay out of the way of each other. At least in my experience, they do. If that ever changes, I'll let people know. But I haven't had any deadlocks, at least not in Update 8. So again, we're just going to slow ourselves right down. Don't worry about the speed. I feel like the trucks, generally speaking, go whatever speed they need to get between the waypoints. They don't match the speed that you did. In fact, they seem to always travel a little slower than their max speed. But just as long as we're not crossing over onto someone else's lane, this should be totally fine. Alright, so the coal station is just this one right up here in front of me. Now, I haven't really built platforms that are actually big enough to handle what I want to do here. I mean, they can handle it fine, but I mean, they might be visually a bit janky if you're looking at them, like I've mentioned before. So a bigger platform might be needed here in future. This was somewhat of a little temporary stopgap because coal could really have a nicer station, I think, built in the future. Might do that on a stream or something because it's relatively like a small thing to do. Anyways, so we're going back around. You can see our other waypoints there on the right. We're obviously well clear of them. Some people were saying like, oh, you can't even get close to the dotted line. You should be able to get pretty close to it. I normally actually drive almost on the dotted line. And things are totally fine. So again, it's just my own experience. I tried, think it was 12 trucks using all different routes, and I was watching it like kind of on almost like a time lapse as they crossed over various crossroads. Like 4 trucks at once met every angle of this crossroad possible, and they all made it through just fine. So not sure, almost not sure how you even get deadlocked unless you literally travel on the wrong side of the road, you know, towards the head first towards something. All right. All right, looking good. Home stretch. So we've loaded up with coal, and we're just going to pull into the station here, and then we're going to follow these new lanes that I've laid out to kind of guide us around. So we're pulling in straight away to the left. So we'll just do this nice, slow and steady. We've got a dotted line that lets us know this is allowed to be crossed. And then we'll just go F, unload. I don't think you have to wait here a certain amount of time. From my experience, the truck just tries to unload everything it can. So it'll determine its own time in the future as we go around. Then we'll pull back out this way. And then we'll take a hard right turn. Okay, and then we're straight out. So we're avoiding the copper lane, if you want to call it that. And we'll just pull out over this way, and then this should just guide us straight back to our finish line. And that's going to be the coal route. So path recording complete. So I'll call this Copper Cat Factory. Let's say CCF, yeah? CCF coal collection or delivery? Well, it's delivery really, isn't it? So CCF coal delivery. Path saved. So hide the nodes, I don't need to see them, and enable autopilot please, and we hop out. Now it's going to try to back up to the initial starting point that it had. And we'll just color it kind of gray, but it'll probably go back too far and reset and then just get going, it'll be fine. So what's it got now? 569 coal still on board. And we'll watch it come around again in just a moment. So if we check this one now, you can actually see the coal is draining out of it as I flick on and off its inventory, because it's going to be making its way out to all of the other stations. And it'll take a little bit of time for it to get there, but we can just check the one down here. That seems to be flowing just fine. Ah, it's not being received into that one because that one's powered off, but the other ones should be receiving it now. We can actually just about see it in the distance there. Yeah, cool. You can actually see them going up. Great. Alright, so that's our first route. So I might do one more with copper, show it on camera, and then I'll just do the rest of them myself. Alright, so in starting one of these copper routes, again, just following the same principle, just going to kind of get up to some speed, some decent speed, hit start recording, keep rolling. And the reason you want to hit some speed before you start recording is just so that the truck doesn't think that you have to slow down or stop or pause right at the beginning. I'm just going to go straight through this junction and line up with one of the copper nodes that we've tapped in between episodes. Have to make a really tight loop around this little area here. Again, it's not easy, man, putting these roads down with all these little mini hills and stuff in the way. But it works. There she is. The coal has just been delivered right ahead of me. Passing by just fine. See you later. Alright, we're going to enter in here. Same entrance. But we're taking a sharp turn and just going straight along. So if you can stay to the right, that'll be beneficial, I think. But not a big deal either way. I think they generally avoid each other. And then we just loop around this way into station number 2. I actually did something before as well, which you can test. You don't have to wait here at all. I like to wait generally as long as the animation takes for the arm to come out and go back in. But as you can see, the copper rolls out even before the animation finishes. So you can actually just fly through here, pressing F on each one. And then when the automatic route takes its, does itself, it'll wait until it fully unloads. Alright, that's that. And then we head on out. Much better than last time, right? Right, so that one's complete. Now I need to remember, what did I call this one? This is Copper Extraction 2. So yeah, so save that path. We'll call this then CCF Copper O2. Copper extraction O2. And then just enable autopilot, hide the nodes, and say, see you later. So it's going to roll back again just to do that thing first. Now, something that's worth mentioning, if you mess up your nodes, let's say, and you don't want to redo the whole route, if you turn on the nodes, you can just go up to them and press E to edit it. You can delete a node. So therefore, if I was to, let's say, this one was a bit close to the line, I think. So I could delete this one. And then it's just going to try to make it from there to here. Therefore, staying probably a little further in from the line. So the only issue here now is that I'm going to have to wait for this guy to get back. Actually, I'll leave that one there. That's where they're starting. I have to wait for the guy to get back, and then I can hop in and turn off these nodes. I don't think you can turn them off unless you're in the vehicle that caused it. Alright, so the trucks are all lining up. Things are looking really good. I've got 5 routes on the go at the moment. If we just hop into this one here, a temporary truck, we can load all the various routes. So we have the coal delivery. First one we set up, our nice angular lines here. And then we have extraction site number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Super nice 90-degree line there, basically, just going straight in. So the interesting thing with this screen is that it tells you the fuel per trip, right? So this one, number 5, let's take as an example, takes 44 coal per trip. But the missing component is it doesn't tell me how long the trip takes. That's probably because there's a tiny bit of variation in there. But what you'd have to do if you want to know in minutes how long, what is my burn rate per minute? Because everything else in the game is basically per minute. We make like 270 coal per minute. And that's feeding all of these trucks in this truck station here, 270 coal per minute. So what I'd need to know is, what's the burn rate per minute? The only way to find that out is to go out to the actual site, so extraction number 5, stand there. When the truck arrives, set a stopwatch, wait for it to do its, trip, and when it comes back, then hit the stopwatch again, and then say, like, okay, it was 2 minutes 30. And then you basically would have to do a little math and say, like, okay, what's that, 44 into 2 minutes 30, and then that'll give you your per minute burn rate. It's not super important. If you want to be lazy like me, I'm not going to do that right away. I will do it in the future, but for now, I'm just going to wing it. Because now in future, we're probably going to be making packaged fuel and stuff, so the burn rate's going to be a bit better. So that's why I'm fine leaving this for now. 1 coal deposit's basically feeding this place. You see that? He's waiting. They wait for the trucks that are in front of them. So we have a nice orderly queue forming here. Just about. I thought he might embarrass me there and slam into his buddy, but no, they are waiting. Just about. Yeah, he's right on the, he's right up his ass, but they are waiting. Alright, so now that all the truck routes are basically in position, the trucks are behaving themselves reasonably well. There's still a little bit of bumping and auto-correcting and things like that here and there, but not nearly as bad as before. Much more reasonable, I think. We can actually be in the area and it'll work most of the time, which is good. What we're going to do now is focus on Caterium. This will be our Caterium station, station number 1. So the way I've outlined it here anyway is that we have station 0. Bit of an odd one, but that's because it doesn't actually deliver anything that goes into the factory. This station is our coal, and it's just to supply the other 5 stations that are here. So we start with number 1, Caterium, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5, all doing copper. So yeah, so the copper ones are pretty much set. All that's really needed for those now is to, I think we want to basically remove the copper production that we have set up here. Do that in the future, you don't need to get rid of it right away. Turn that into just another copper node to be sacrificed to the Copper Caterium factory. Then I also need to add a second station down here at the crater, because there's 3 deposits. So we need to be able to feed into 3 inputs of a truck station. We can't do that at the moment, if we want to maximize what we use out of that. Apart from that, I think that might be the number that I was aiming for. 4,800 ore is the number I was aiming for. If that's fallen short, there's another node just somewhere up here by the lake, I think. So we'd probably grab that one as well. There is an actual pure node somewhere over here, but I had other plans for that in the future, although it really doesn't matter if people want to tap that or something. If they're following along, go for it. Anyways, so let's get started. So what we're doing is the belt release system. So what we need to do first is actually start harvesting the Caterium that's right here. And I'll have to set up 1 truck to deliver in from the other node, which is just kind of out in the distance, kind of roughly out that direction. But to start here, we'll just grab a 4-meter foundation, have a look at the tallest point on the deposit, hold control to get onto that world grid, and we'll do a bit of a 3x3 sort of situation here. And we can go out to 4. And we can maybe bring that across. I might change that, who knows, but we'll do cosmetics. I don't think I've mentioned this so far, but my plan is to do a lot of the cosmetics for this factory, some of the extra bits, on a stream after this, because it's not as important, and I'd like to get user input for that, see what people think looks good and stuff, and then it'll be a bit more long form and chatty, and we can also go through like what works and if there's any issues with the factory, but hopefully everything seems to be running just fine. But I think having that kind of level of interactability after having so many episodes on this one place will be good. I'm looking forward to it, especially now that we're in the new year. So I'm going to go out to this one. So we'll stand here and we'll look straight up. So we're lined up with that one. So there'll actually only be a level 1 foundation. We need a 2 meter, don't we? In position. So it's going to be a little awkward. That was not nearly as awkward as I thought it was going to be. So that's great. Just look straight up again. Mark 3 miner. Reverse the direction so it's an input. And in we go. Alright, so that's what's going to be hooked up with our first batch of Caterium. We won't turn this on just yet. And in the future, see, what I'd probably like to do is turn this into some sort of tower. So we just walk up and we're able to climb up from here. And that'll be kind of baked into it, part of the tower, so to speak. Alright, so here we are. So that is our input hole. Oh, sorry, rather, it's an output, actually. So, yeah, so let's get these ones here. I'll start on the bottom. I think that's totally fine. And travel along the middle point here. And I'll just leave it as a Mark 1 belt for the moment. I'll clean that up myself in a bit. So this is where we're going. And bring this all the way down. Until we can't bring a belt no further. Alright, so we'll stop somewhere here, shall we? Are we lined up? Yeah. Okay, so we've got a blueprint for this. Now, previously we used the stackable belts blueprints that I gave out. I've made another one, just a version that only has 2 belts on it, but it's raised above the ground. So stackable belts 1 by 2. It's just one set of 2 belts. And we'll start it right here. And then basically every gap of 2, so we go like, yep, there's one gap and here's our next one. We just line them up and we just have to connect them together then. So I want to spare people the time with all this because we've seen this before. So we'll be hooking all these guys up a bit faster than last time. But here, we have our conveyor Mark 1. That's obviously going to have to just come up to the one right in front. And then here, we can go just rotate it around. It should automatically get to the height it needs to. We'll Mark 3 them from here on out. I mean, they'll obviously become Mark 3, so not to confuse anyone, they are Mark 3 lifts. These will be Mark 3 belts the whole way. I was just being a bit lazy, but there we go. Just make sure you haven't left any behind, I guess. Alright, there we go. We're connected all the way back. Just 2 belts rolling along. Now we're at the area where, if you remember, we have the copper sinking down. So that's where it's going right now. Like, it's sinking down on those various elevators or those lifts, and it's not coming up on the other side, right? So that's clearly all our belt locks are on at the moment, locking the belts, meaning that it's all going into resource sinks. None of it's coming back up. None of the refineries are getting fed. And that's what we're going to do here. So in order to get the ball rolling on that, I kind of have to actually just quickly check downstairs to make sure we are lined up correctly. Yeah, so if we travel along this way, what I'll probably do is put the awesome sinks out this side. So I think just 2 tiles is probably enough. Just give it some space for a moment. See how that treats us. Right, so here we are. So we're going to take a left-hand turn here somewhere, and then we just need to go downstairs with both of these. So we'll just make 2 little foundation holes here and here. I guess we'll make it metal. Alright, so bonk and bonk. So you're starting there. Is it here, I think? 1, 2. 1, 2. There we go. Let's connect that in. Connect that in. And then, yeah, these just feed into each other. So this one's the first one. 1, 2 for them. And you're going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Alright, so you go over, you go under. Alright, so that's that. They can go downstairs now. And then we'll just join them up with those kind of long stackables we just made. Ah, yeah, I'm a bit too far forward. Okay, so we'll just get rid of this. Thankfully, we have blueprint dismantle. Just gonna grab this one. So we know that we're gonna start roughly aiming at that direction, right about there. Is that okay? Yeah. So we'll just get rid of this one. That's not needed. We don't technically need this belt or that one, so we can shave these down a bit. The nice thing with Blueprint Dismantle is that even removing components of a blueprint, it still allows us to dismantle the whole thing overall when we don't want it. So I love that. I love that it retains its knowledge of blueprint ownership even after you've kind of almost changed it. Alright, so Mark 3, we connect that in. Connect that in. Okay, so actually I don't think I have what I need, but we could just put down normal splitters for now, but we're going to do an awesome sink. Alright, we've got what we need for that. I think if at all possible we keep it in from the glass window, yeah? That would probably make more sense. So maybe just to... oh, just pop it in all the way. Yeah, that's okay. And then just do a second one beside it. So we don't need 8, we've only got 2 belts, so we don't need 2. So that's not too bad at all. So again, we'll just continue this straight ahead. Just still like there. And just because, of course, I've done this on a seam, making it very awkward, I'm going to just have to delete this anyway. So this will be the regular flow, and the central coming out is going to be the overflow. So it'll be overflow, and then it'll go upstairs, continuing that trajectory. So here, just pop that in there. Great. Good. Lined up. Not too shabby. Pretty quick as well, right? So that's that done. We just have to, obviously, I have to go pick up some AI limiters. They're just outside. I just haven't gotten it. They're literally right there. Just haven't got them right now. We'll turn those into smart splitters and copy the settings from the other ones. Now what we got to do is send this upstairs. Just for some reason, if somehow the awesome things trip and the truck stations don't trip, this actually would be used. But how easy is that? That's not too bad at all, huh? Not too shabby. Alright, connect that in, connect that in. So that's that. So let me just track that really quickly, because these belts aren't actually labeled. I have new labels for them, but this one going across and then going out. So it's using the inside input and the inside output. Okay, actually, yeah, no, that does work, because, yeah, this one is going to be the one that comes up here. So the only rule would be, like, this has to go up high, which would make sense, because we couldn't connect them otherwise anyway. So let me just grab that. So these are going to be traveling down this way. This is the blocks of where these refineries are going to go. I could have turned it up here and fed them in, but I think it's better to go around and in, just to keep consistency with what the copper does. That's the main reason for that. Just so that when I'm tracking things in the future, if I'm trying to figure out something that's going wrong or remember how this was done, not only do I have these videos to look back on, I guess, but it's kind of nice to just follow uniformity. Wherever you set a sort of mini rule, just follow it, and then it's easier to kind of helps the build, I think, overall. So I've got the AI limiter. I just thought I'd mention, you can obviously just grab whatever you're looking at, right, with the middle mouse button, but you can grab a splitter, press E to switch to smart splitter, hold control, and it'll replace the one that was there. Really nice feature. So just do that on both of these. And then again, like I mentioned, so towards our left is anything, and towards ahead of us is going to be overflow. I'll just copy that setting, and we'll just paste it onto this one here as well. I can give it a nice red finish. So that's kind of my, what's it called, Caterium kind of coloring. And this doesn't update until I restart the game. It should be red on both sides, and it will be, I'm sure, when we come back in. So the thing to do now would be to actually hook it up to the power grid that we built in the previous episode, right? We have all these power switches controlling all of our belt releases, our water extractors, and several blocks of refineries as well, and the truck stations. So for this one, we're going to do something similar. So what I've done before is belt lock A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. So each of these power switches is controlling the release of a conveyor belt that's going to feed into 2 blocks. A block is just a group of, I think, what is it, 26 refineries? So we've got one here, there, and one just in the distance behind that one. So Caterium has 3 blocks in total, whereas Copper has 14. So that needed its own kind of whole section of power switches. But this doesn't. This only needs 1 switch to control releasing into all 3 blocks. And because of the naming conventions, we're using alphabetical starting at A, B, C, D, and so on. I'm actually just going to call this one Belt Lock XYZ. XYZ. And the power switch will be on. So, Belt Lock XYZ. Now, the differences here would be that all of the copper has its own set of water extractors as well. But we're just going to do, again, water extractor X, Y, and Z, and then belt or sorry, block X, Y, and Z. And that way, we've got 7 switches here in its own little section, all to do with Caterium. We can completely control how Caterium works just via this control panel right in front of me. So yeah, I'm just going to name these, and then we'll paint them, and we'll resume. Alright, there we go. So just to give you a general view of what it would look like with global illumination turned on, I've decided to make the belt locks a green color, just to kind of differentiate it from the red blocks, which are the refineries, the blue, which are the water extractors, and the yellow, which are the lights. So yeah, so this will be our Caterium block. Now, I might change the lighting in here. I've been working on some different things. People have been mentioning using signs can just illuminate rooms better than a lot of the actual lights in the game, so I might just do that. But right now, right in front of us, we have belt lock X, Y, and Z, so controlling all of the belts via one power connector or switch. Then we have 3 extractors, X, Y, and Z, different lines, and then we have X, Y, and Z of the blocks themselves. So of course, if we just flick back to turning off global illumination, what we'll have to do then is run behind here and drag these power lines down. So that's going to be 1, 2, and 3. So here, they're going to go straight down. And similar to this, we'll pull them along the ground. Now, we want to kind of come down from the top, actually, if possible, I think. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so all these wires will have to come down. We'll just drag them to be the same spot, so where is that? It's roughly about here, isn't it? We're just being lazy, we'll just drag out 7. And then just hook them all up and disconnect them from each other. Alright, looking good. So we need to go down even further. And the way these are designed, they should not intersect with the other ones. Now, I need to clean up the wires in here a little bit, because we've lazily, at the previous episode, just pulled them all out from the cable runners that we have. Gonna kind of do that again, this one. So we'll grab these power connectors. Actually, they might have to come in further, won't they? Alright, is that looking alright? I think so. Lock that in. Just climb up somewhere here for a second. Oh, I'm too small to get up that further. But that should be lined up now, at least, so we can just connect those in together. Bit awkward, though, because it's facing the other direction, isn't it? Yeah, not gonna lie, not the easiest way to line these up, but it does work. You can actually kind of just look right through the beam, in a way. Find that sweet spot and connect them in together. Right, so we know that this one was the belt release line. So the bar closest to where we come in, we'll have to feed that across onto both of the awesome sinks. Alright, so they're both hooked up. Again, a bit lazy with the wiring on this side of things. I'll clean that up in future. So now all we have to do if we want to stop the flow of Caterium into the refineries is pull this switch, turning on the belt lock. Now I just realized something. Water extractor X, Y, and Z, and then we've got refinery block X, Y, and Z. These 3 don't need to travel downstairs. They'll have to travel upstairs. That's going to be the only kind of block of power switches where that'll probably happen. So that'd be 1, 2, and 3 can be cut there. And instead, they're just going to go straight up. Yeah, that's the only difference with those. Alright, so that should be power now connected straight up to our miner Mark III. I don't think I'm going to connect that to any sort of power switch inside of the factory or anything, because all of the other miners that are doing copper and all of the other things, they're all coming from all over the map, right? And they're just powered on respectively to wherever they are. So this kind of behaves along the same sort of rules or principles. So we'll turn that all the way up, why not? What can we get out of this? 480, wow. Well, we can't have used that yet. 270 is the best we can use, so we'll take this back. And if we follow that, we should see it coming over towards our awesome sinks in just a moment. Oh wow, yeah, it's making its way really quickly, actually. So there it is. And it's going to go down the first one. There we go. Aha! We found our first glitch. It's a Mark III. Or it was a Mark I, so they're coming down nicely now. Flowing along. And if our overflow is set up correctly, they should all just feed straight in there. And it's as easy as that. It's as easy as that. And then flicking a switch, they should continue and go up. Yep. Alright, so the next thing should be doing water. So previously I'd already outlined where these are going to be. So we've got block, how do we do it? Z, Y and X. That's how we're going to lay it out, because we started over there with A. So X, Y, and Z, I think, kind of makes sense. Anyway, so we have our little area here to put down the floor holes, right? Our custom-made blueprints. Again, all the blueprints that you see in this episode today will be available for free in the description if you just go to whatdarrenplays.com/satisfactory. And yeah, it's great to see people using them a lot. People are hopping in my Discord, posting their variations on my own blueprints and stuff. It's just kind of surreal seeing like, oh, you know, you put out videos, people comment, and everything's great. But to actually see people take screenshots and like recreate their own things from the game, I just think that's really cool. It's like, oh wow, I actually have an impact. Anyway, there we go. So we have our pipeline, our pump, and our valve, and our junction. So we just pop that down another 2 times, basically here and here, and that can allow us to get started for doing water down below, because it gives us our sort of tells us where we should aim for, you know, the floor hole in the ceiling. So we're aiming into that block evenly as well. Alright, here we are. So those are the 3 little spots. I have everything I need, but we're going to have to change the layout of the walkways. So I guess what's probably going to happen is we'll just go straight across from here, because why not? Alright, there we go. Yeah, this should be good. Alright, we'll start with the furthest one first, and then work our way out. So how I've done this previously, right, we just have 5 water extractors in a line, and then I make the thickness go, you know, 3 walkways across, so 1.5 foundations in total. Alright, so I'm actually back down in the basement, and I've just done a fresh line of water extractors. I was explaining through it, but nothing really went wrong, but I just felt like I could explain this better and do it quicker, so let's give it a second shot, shall we? Right, so we have our floor holes in position. Using horizontal to vertical, we can drag this all the way down and reach the first kind of connection point in the foundations, right down from below the seam, right? So the actual floor hole starts on a seam between 2 foundations, and we just come over 1 foundation. That's where we connect to. Totally fine. Drag this pretty much as far down as we can go until it says we can't go any further, so about there. And just continue that down again a little bit further. Alright, so our pipeline is now in position. Now we grab our junction cross, and we start 1, 2, and 3. We start on that seam. So we keep it on the seam. That should allow us now to grab a water extractor, rotate it, and holding control, line this up just nicely until it starts to clip over the edge. Once 1 is down, that makes it pretty easy then to just hold control and snap them into each other, keeping them nice and aligned. 5 in total is what we're going to be going with. And they are 11 it. Now we just grab our junctions and we can hold control so they snap into the outputs. And if we have something like this in the way, unfortunately we'll have to just snap that out of existence. Holding control here is totally fine as well. And there. And wow, I actually have to come down even further than I anticipated. Alright, so that's going to be us lined up. We'll just connect these up together. Horizontal to vertical mode is totally fine doing this. But if you want to be very particular, you could use Auto 2D. Alright, so those are now all hooked up together. So now we have this area here. What we want to do is get our pump. Actually, sorry, the junction cross will go on the middle of this foundation. Then we get our pump. Holding control, we can lock onto that junction. Holding control again, we want to rotate so that we're aiming the right direction, because the game likes to mess with you. Same here. It's already flipped it. Does it so quickly you can barely even notice it. And now those are in position as well. Get rid of this now. We can also get rid of this bit. And what we're going to look for next, if I have it... Oh, I don't have the modular frames for it. But basically, right here is where the fluid buffer is going to go. So that's where the fluid buffer will go. We'll just leave that for a moment, because there's still more to be done. So what we'll need next is the scaffolding that I made earlier. And that's just to allow us to kind of climb up and down something like this really quickly. So I'll just set default mode. Something like that's probably fine. Are we lined up enough? I think so. Just push it back a little bit. Alright, cool. Now using blueprint mode, we can snap on top of itself. And I can't quite see if we're lined up, so let's get a better angle. There we go. Alright, that brings us all the way to the top. Now, because there's a bug in the game to do with putting down a pipe onto a floor hole and then connecting a pump, the segment between the floor hole and the pump breaks. So this bit is the broken part. So we just remove that, and we just place it back in. That's all we have to do. That fixes the floor hole bug that people have been experiencing. But just to be ultra safe, I'm just going to redraw the pipe the whole way down, because who knows, maybe there's something else going on with pumps as well that can be a little finicky. And it's better safe than sorry, I think, just to redraw the pipe now that the pumps are in place, yeah? And it's quite quick to do so, because the pumps basically act as that initial anchor that we had. So yeah, I'm going to have to go get more modular frames, and then we can... Unless I've... No. Yeah, hang on a sec. Alright, I've just made my batch of modular frames, so now we can pop this thing in. So, fluid buffer. The buffer is used, by me anyway, to see if we're ready to fill the machines upstairs. Once the buffer starts filling up, it means that all the refineries upstairs are full. Don't know why it works that way. Many people have pointed out that this, you'd think, being lower than the machines up above, would fill first. It doesn't, so there you go. Can't tell you why, I just know this is how it works. Alright. So that's it. I mean, it's as easy as that. The only difference now would be that we would have to put in the, what I've been calling, again, scaffolding, but what, small frame pillar. Pop it right here. Holding zoop going all the way up. And then I have to make a power switch down here to control the pumps. Do I have what I need for that? Probably not. I feel like I dumped my AI limiters. Oh, no, I didn't. I have it. Sweet. Alright, so just, that can go right there. Now, if I remember correctly as well, the power poles line up on the... Well, hang on. The best way to do it, really, is to grab a crossing. Because it's 3 width is the width of the walkways that I do when the extractor's here. And that just gives you a bit of room to walk around it. And then, if there are no extractors, I bring it back down to 2 width. We can say 3 all the way to about here, I think is probably fine. Alright, anyway, doing that, we know where to put the power poles now, if we want to keep it consistent. So, you can basically see that the outlet is here, so you want to line up. So it's in between the 2 spots of a walkway. And it stays like that the whole way down. Now, I'm not actually sure how much water we need for these lines. I know it's more than enough is provided here. Obviously, 600 is provided with 5 of these. I think we need less than that, but I don't know the exact number right now. We'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so looking good. So that'll be our line to feed the water extractors. So that's our B line. So the B line will have to be, I think, somewhere like here, right? Oh, sorry, this is for the pump activation. So that's literally just connecting to there, and that's going up to the next set of pumps just above. So right below it I put a node and then I connect in. Same with up here. I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of the scaffolding so quickly. And that's connected in. Now I'll have to go upstairs and we need to drag that wire through because there's a pump right above here, remember, that we placed down as part of a blueprint. So that's the only other missing connection point. The A line is going to be the mains power, or at least the power line that's going to connect back to the cable runners. So the way I've been doing that is basically having it here, kind of connecting it through, just to be really awkward for everyone. So we connect it through almost like it's a power outlet that just travels around. And then this is going to be connected into here. So again, keeping consistency, it was between 2 power lines, right? Or between 2 of the walkway points. So it's like right there. That feeds into here. And this just continues up, basically, until it hits those cable runners, which will be coming right across this point at some point. So the cable runners will probably be like going across here or something, once we figure out where they need to turn. But that will then latch into there. So that's going to be powering... So the mains power that travels here powers both this switch and all the water extractors. So if the water extractors are powered on, you're then allowed to pull the pump switch. It's not really that necessary. It's just for troubleshooting reasons. If there's ever a problem with the pumps or something, I want to turn them off and just see what's going on. Anyway, probably won't ever have to do that. A little bit of added complication for no real benefit, to be quite honest. But that's it. That's how you do a line. So I have to do one more of those now, and then we're done, and I can start placing get the placement for the cable runners. Alright, so I've actually painted the entire area now to be consistent with the rest of it. We have our 3rd line of water extractors in. The only thing now is just to continue the cable runners I've been drawing it just from, you know, where we actually first put it down. Now remember, only 3 of them actually need to come along this way, so that's pretty much as far as it needs to go. I'll have to run up there and then start running them sideways. Can I actually do that now, I wonder? Let's see. Just even from down here. Yeah, that'd probably be nice if we could just lock that in. Yeah, something like that. Looks good to me. And just run that across. And then we'll just chop away the bits of steel that we don't need, because we only need 3 of them. There's 7 on this line. Alright, so I feel like it was getting a bit confusing. So if you remember how we did this before, these are going to the awesome sinks. This is then X, Y, Z, and then this is refinery block X, Y, and Z. So these don't exist down here. They are not needed. Right, and even this one, I guess, as well, has already been used. So this is what we're working with. Just these 3. So this can continue across to here. So previously I'd said, I don't know if I kept it in or not, but I said that that was going to be X. Yeah, previously I had said that this was going to be X, Y, and Z in that order. But now I'm going to do it the opposite way around. So it's going to be X, then Y, then Z in terms of the blocks that are above us. That just works out a little bit better for power. And because these are just 3 standalone kind of blocks of refineries on their own, I don't really mind the fact that they don't quite match the way that that's done, because that's going to be A and then B and then C, right? So it's a bit strange that we're going in the reverse order, but we're also starting at the end of the alphabet, so what does it really matter? Okay, so yeah, just continuing along. So that means, with that in mind, that means that here is going to be where we go across to there. So I might just go up a bit further with that. For consistency's sake, I'm just adding a beam that's going in this way, just to make it more consistent, so that the first one has its little joining on bit. Alright, so the only bit of confusion would be the fact that this is crossing over, you know, 7 wires. That's not that bad, is it, though, really? 1 wire is just going across. And then these ones are just traveling up. So just to make sure, so that's going to be X, Y, and Z. So is Y going to where it should be? Yes. X, Y, and Z. Great. Alright, good. So I'm just going to test turning these on now, one by one, just make sure they're all hooked up correctly. Alright, there we go. You can hear them turning on. So I turned on X and Z. So we have the ones here, that would be X group. This would be Y, which I did not turn on, and they're not powered on right now, which is good, and Z, which is powered on. I've just tested it by turning off those and turning on Y, and Y group is working as well. So now we can just simply remove all these foundations, so we're just left with the cable runners on top. Nice. I was dropping some crates earlier, at least this time that's not happening. Yeah, so I reckon in the cosmetic episode I might just, you know, tuck those in a little bit and maybe put the beam connectors on them or something that can look a little nicer. But otherwise, pretty happy though. Pretty happy with it. Alright, so the extractors are off, so that means that water is now done. So the next thing is placing in all of the refineries. Now if you remember, most of them are placed in already, but I have to make a slight adjustment to how I'm doing it. Yeah, so I had 65 machines planned for here, but it meant that with the amount we can fit into one block, which is 26, we'd be left with an irregular amount. One of the blocks would have to be half full. But instead, what I'm going to do is try to place... So here's the math. Don't worry about that. 65 is the amount of machines we need, right? So if we want to know why that is, just as a refresher, we've got 1560 ore coming in. That's basically 780 times 2, right? So 780 times 2 is 1560, so that's the amount of ore we have coming in. Each machine takes 24 Caterium ore, which leaves us with a possible 65 machines. So 65 machines then is what we need, and we need to fit them into 3 groups. Yeah, 3 blocks, I guess. So that's 21.66666, etc. So we could do... Well, what if we were to do it, we have sort of 6 lines of machines, right? Not just 3 groups, but each group has 2 lines. So let's say it was 65 divided by 6. And then we only need 10 machines per line. Well, really 11. 11, and one of them has to be underclocked to 83.333%. So that's basically what I'm going to do. And in order to fill out the entire block and keep consistency and make it even, otherwise we'd have a kind of a shortened block, which I wouldn't really like. I like to keep at least the walkways 3 length, or 3 width. Just because if we have any lights and stuff on top, it keeps everything evenly lit everywhere we go, rather than just having one bigger corridor here, which would look a bit strange. So, in order to do that, we know that, what was this? Is it 18 by 7? I can't quite remember, actually, it's been a while since I looked at it. That's 17. It's not 17 by... No, yeah, there we go. I have a missing piece at the end. 18. So it's 18 across by 7. So if we go down to 9, this would be the 9th foundation. Alright, so this is the very center point that we have to follow. So we have to line up with number 33 over there. Now I've updated the recipe, so it should be correct now. We want the inputs, the outputs facing towards me, and we want to be right up against the line, but in by 1. And I think that's basically how we've done it before. Alright, so that's 1. So we need to do 5 either side of it, right? But we always have to nudge it out by 1. Not like that, but like this. There we go. So 3, and then 4, and then 5. So I thought about creating a bigger gap between them to fill out this space a bit better. But then the kind of blueprints I have for the logistics, I'd have to give out separate ones. I'd have to tell people, use these other ones instead of using this one. And I'd have to redesign them a little bit too. A lot of faffery. Let's just keep it consistent. We'll have some edges on the side here, but that's okay. They're smaller blocks. But at least they'll be even from the center point. Alright, so that was, yeah, so we need another 5 here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Anyway, that keeps us, yeah, basically at 1.5 foundations gap on either side. So I'm just going to do that now for each group. Alright, so now that the Caterium refineries are all in position, we can mark that off of our to-do list and work on the logistics. Now, the interesting thing with the Caterium is it takes in, let's just select a standard machine, takes in 24 Caterium ore and puts out 12. That's exactly half. If you remember, we have 2 miners delivering here, and eventually they'll be up to 780 per minute. 780 times 2 is 1560. We've built this place 1560 in mind, divided by 24, that's 65 machines. So what's our total output? Or do we have to divide belts? Does this get crazy like the copper did? No, because 65 machines times their output of 12 is just 780. So all of the Caterium ingots we get can fit on one belt if we wanted to. Alright, I'm back down on the logistics floor. We have our water ready to go. We've got all our floor holes in position, and now we're going to use the blueprint, which I provided a couple episodes ago, for the refinery logistics at 2 meters and at 4 meters, just to make sure that that's correct. You can see here that lines up with that, so the 2 meters is one that we'll want to use. And if we go to 4 meters, that'll be that one. Some people have corrected me and said it's not 2, that's 4, and that's 6. Whatever, man. You're probably right, but it's named the way it is now, and I've mentioned it so much that I'm just gonna stick with it. But your people are right. You know, I'm not taking that away from anyone for sure. No. Oh, it's actually starting just slightly. Oh yeah, because we've done the alignment different this time, haven't we? Yeah. All right, that's fine. Good thing we checked. Good thing we have this blueprint dismantle as well, and nudging, so we could check that all out before we commit to it. All right, happy with that. So lock that in. And then we have to go 1, 2, 3 to bring it down further. Now, this is going to be quite interesting thinking about it, because, although I'll show you when we get there, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's just do the next one. 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay, so that's the smaller belt, let's say. That's the, you know, what I've called 2 meters. And we'll use the one that's then 4 meters just at the far end. The middle is going to have to be a split of 2 on one side and 4 on the other side. So that's why it's a little unusual, but should be alright. Alright, so the 4 meter one is in position now. Now we're going to move over to the 2 meter one, but not for the next block, for the block on the end. And then we'll get to the middle block in a minute, because it's a bit different. So again, we've used 4 of these, we'll use 4 of these ones. Turn off blueprint mode, just get the direction correct, line these guys up, something like this is usually correct. No, it actually needs to go much further forward. So there's our floor hole, we just need to map that on the same side down here, commit, and then copy them over a few times. Alright, so on the roof, we're just going to load a blueprint. We're going to load the Logistics Refinery 2 meter. Alright, so we load that up. Just check the direction of the flow of the belts. So they're flowing that way. So we'll need this side to be the one that's raised. like so, right? And just connect these belts back in. And get rid of what's on the bottom. So we're creating like a hybrid, almost, of both sides. So we'll just save this now, 2 meter and 4 meter. We'll just put both in like that. Hybrid for differing sizes. Okay. And we'll just save that. Hopefully it gets saved into the same directory. I think it will. Yeah, it's right there. Cool. Alright, we'll just drag it down. Save. Bonk. Clear this refinery. The blueprint designer. Hop back down. Let's test this out. See if I did it right. Okay, so the reason for this is because we have 3 blocks, but we have 2 lines. So each line has to feed into 1 row each in the middle block. And because they're at different heights, we needed this kind of unique split, I guess. So is this the one that it? Yes. And I think we're starting there, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if I got that right. Boom. Getting good. And the raised ones are closer to the raised ones over there. Nice. So yeah, it's very specific to have done this, but it's just an interesting kind of way to see how you do these things. Thinking in blueprints, trying to get a bit better with it. Alright, so that should be us lined up. Looking good to me. So now I'm just going to connect all the belts and connect all the floor holes and all of that stuff up together. Right? Everything's in position for us just to make those connections, so you get the idea. And pick that one up. Alright, cool. So here we are. This is where the glass cases are going to go. I was initially going to have 2 sets of them for Caterium, but it's just ultimately not needed. Right? We could barely even fill the 8 outputs as it is without splitting the belts. So we'll go with our new glass case side A. Not on blueprint mode, just default mode. Sink it way down until you can't sink it anymore. And we want it to be like this, is it? No. The other way around. That is a finicky one, but there we go. Alright, so line that over here, and then just make sure it's on this side as well. There we go. Alright, cool. That should be using the new kind of goldish color, hopefully, rather than the copper color. Let's do side B, blueprint mode. Get our pillars out facing towards us. And then make these guys friends. And just to see what it looks like, let's just boot onto global illumination again. Oh yeah. Looks good. That's the first time I looked at it actually, so I'm glad I've gone with that yellow. It does look good. Caterium will look real nice flowing up there. I have no doubt. Alright, so there we have it. 8 outputs ready to go. Now it presents a little bit of a logistical challenge for us. We have 6 lines of machines with their outputs trying to go into 8 outputs up here. But if you remember, all of these machines, if we added up all of their belts together, it would actually just be an output of 780, which is the Mark V belt speed, right? So we could fit it all on one belt. We're going to try and aim for those 8 and just divide things up fairly. So we've got 1, 2, and 3 lines there. I'm going to aim to bring them into these 4 outputs. We don't need to keep track of them or anything. It really doesn't matter. But then these 3 are going to then go into these 4. So let's try to make that happen. So we have our center point here. So if we started with a splitter right about here, and then we had another one. Want to go down that far? Yeah, why the hell not? Okay, 1, 2, and 3. And then here, 1, 2, and then 3. So I'll actually bring this back a little bit further. So we're 3 up. Let's just get rid of that one. Okay, so we're starting there. So now we can do 1 belt into here. 1 belt into here. And what we can also do then is bring this down. So if we bring it all the way down to the ground, right, till it's not clipping, that's level with the bottom one. So now we go 1, 2, and then 1, 2. Now we know that we're at the correct height. We'll try that again. 1, 2, 1, 2. It always looks like it's slightly higher than it should be. That's basically the rule. Alright. Alright, so we're going to do the same here. Bring it all the way down. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Now if we grab a belt here and just connect it to that output, it should be right angled as well. Oh yes. Love to see it. Alright, let's bring this down. Rotate around. Clipping, we don't like that, so we go 1, 2, 1, 2. Mark 3 it out of our mind. Alright, let's Mark 3 these as well, just to be safe. Not to be safe, we have to. Alright, cool. There we go. So from here, we just need to merge 3 lines and then send it into there. Then it's been split evenly 4 ways. We can merge it all back upstairs then onto 1 line if we want to. I probably will do that actually based on some of my numbers. Alright, so we're going to be starting with 1, 2, and 3. I'll take the center point and we could go right there. But I think actually we're going to have to come forward 1, like this. And then we'll bring it up to 3. So, let's see if this works. Grab our number 6 tool, we go to Mark 3 just to be safe. Mark 3 to cross, so that's all good. And this is to leave us with walkable space down on the bottom as well. It's part of the reason we're doing it this way. Now, is that a 90-degree angle? Oh, yeah. Yep. Fucking nailed it. I'm starting to get good at this game, getting these on first try. Sometimes. There is actually still lots of times in this video that I'm sure I've cut out where I did not get things in first try. But it feels damn good when you do. Alright, in you go. See you later. Alright, so we want to bring this across. We'll use a stackable pole, I think, this time. Just keeping consistent line there. So we go 1, 2. Bring that up to its buddy. Alright, now, we don't have to. We can get rid of these bottom bits, get some of those materials back. And that's what we're left with. It's all Mark 3'd, so it's basically 3 of the lines. Their mergers all converge on this one. They all come through, and then they get evenly split. Right, so this splits 50-50, and then that's 25-25, 25-25. Yeah? So I'm just going to do that again, but in reverse now, on this side. Alright, so that should be that. We can just cut away these bottom feeders. And, yeah, we're hooked up. All the lines are now hooked up. So we just got to do the water. It's very simple to do this. They just feed into their, yeah, actually, it's probably easier to come from this angle down. 1, 2. And they just feed into each line, just like that. Not a big deal. Wow, is there water in here already? Oh, I guess a little bit from when we pumped it earlier. Alright, so just like that, all of the logistics are now done. So I'm going to just quickly do some math and see exactly what these machines can produce, given the Mark III belt speed is our limit, and then we'll just turn off the ones that we don't need. Alright, so I've just done a little bit of math to work out, what is our limit, how many can we run right now, given the current progress we have in the game, and it turns out we're limited by the pipe, not by the belt. So our best pipe is still just Mark 1, although I think we're basically ready to get Mark 2. But let's just stick it at Mark 1 anyway, because I don't really want to power them all on right now, because we don't have that much power. So let's just assuming we're at Mark 1 for now. Our best, flow rate is going to be 300. So each machine takes 24 water. So if we do 300 divided by 24, it gives us 12.5. So I would say 12 machines can be powered on, and that means 6 per row. So 6 on this row, 6 on this row, and so on and so forth. So that's 6 times 6, which means a total of 36 refineries will be operational. And if 36 refineries are operational, we'll be getting 432 Caterium ingots per minute. That's out of the possible 780. So we're not that far off, really. Just 1 or 2 more upgrades and we're good to go. So yeah, so one thing I did forget is I actually haven't hooked up the incoming belts. Damn, it felt very elegant when I first did it, and now it's a bit messy. But they all need to be raised to get out of the way of certain belts. Actually, this one doesn't. Yeah, this one doesn't. It was just this bit that does. So actually what we could do here, again, just flip that around and send that in. So basically, it's to give room for our incoming belts, right, that are coming in this way. To go, they need to travel up and over here and just continuously go all the way down. So to do that, I just needed to clear a little bit of headspace there. But yeah, bit awkward. Oh, actually, and then the final bit will be here, right? So Mark 3, 2, 2, and then we just go like this and send it in. Yeah, so we've cleared that area now. Alright, so anyway, with that in mind, I want to bring this actually kind of central. Probably just over the pumps, I guess. So about there. So 1, 2. So we'll drag that all the way over. Drag that all the way over. So the interesting thing with these is that we have 3 rows to feed in to with each one, which means a splitter does 3. So it works out quite nicely. We just have to split this belt once and send the 3 inputs somewhere else. So I'm going to grab the blueprint here. I'll just keep that central. Just bring this all the way down. Alright, so I've got my kind of, you can see here the red conveyor poles, the central bus. I haven't connected it fully yet, but the input line is coming around from this direction. So let's just follow this around, connect these guys in. So the top layer is the one that was getting in the way of everything, so that's going to have to branch off first. So our inputs are there, there, and one down there. So to do this, what I'm going to do is grab a splitter, we'll pop it on the line here, 1, 2, and 3. This one can just now continue into there. This one can go straight into its buddies. And then what we got to do is bring this one back. Right, we're splitting 3 ways evenly. 1, 2, go up. And in. So that's set. And then the same with this one, except it has to go much further down. All the way into there. So to do that, I suppose we'd almost want to use stackables again, but just for now, I'll just use the standard pole. I can replace it later when I do the cosmetics, as I mentioned. 2. Just find it easier, obviously, placing the pole because it's part of the belt. Alright, there we go. So that's that done. So that means now we won't need this on top. That's done now. But the secondary belt, the one on the bottom, does need to continue all the way through and do the same as what its friend on top is doing, but just further down the line. It's all the inputs done now, so it really isn't that complicated. It's just one line, or 2 lines, coming in and getting separated into 6 groups. Each line getting separated into 3. So it's just one splitter. So if we just follow it from here, it's relatively straightforward, right? We come along this way, and then we go into a splitter, and that goes down one line. It goes around and down another line, and this one then has to just go down a little further and follow its way into this line. Right, and the same is just happening in reverse on the other side. You can actually hear water sloshing back and forth in this place. It's come past the valve, I guess. But until we power that pump, it's not going to make it up to any machine. Okay, so that is all of the logistics done for Caterium, except for one important thing, which is the actual truck delivery itself. So I'm going to head out to the other mining opportunity and set up a new truck route delivering in Caterium ore. Alright, so I've just turned on the miner. I've overclocked it to 270 per minute, and it's traveling up to my makeshift little area where I have a truck station. Now, like I said, this stuff will change. This is going to be subject to change in a cosmetic stream of mine, but wanted to just get the feel of it. You know, this is a very tough area to kind of build in terms of making it look nice. Like, it can be done, but I just wanted to get something down, right? We have the oil drill enclosure. I have the road kind of splitting off here and then just coming down. Still left actually some of my foundation placements intact, but there we go. That's pretty much what it looked like. Yeah, so then we have, even below this is where the 2 copper mines are as well, actually. So, busy area now. It's getting busy. Get rid of that maybe as well. That poor bird, actually. Is he going to make it? Oh, no. He was traveling right across it. He'll be fine, right? Oh, he's okay. Alright. Yeah, so now I just have to drive the route and open up the road, I guess. Alright, and just like that, the route is done. Look at it. Perfect driving. No problem at all. And we have Caterium just flowing out now. This is the first time it's arrived on its own, so I just wanted to make sure that route was working. But after my first delivery, obviously the belt is still full from then. So yeah, seems to be totally fine. Of course, this is still just going into recycling, but now we have the bottom belt and the top belt. Top belt is from the miner downstairs, I think. Oh no, sorry, the bottom is. Yeah. and the top belts from the truck station. And of course they go down into our recycling room, where we get to decide if the belt releases it or not, and then it will flow along here and go down into each individual refinery, into 2 different groups, each group having 3 rows of machines. And our capacity for each row at the moment is 6, because that's the best our pipes can deal with, although we're pretty close to getting Mark II pipes. But that's pretty much it. I've marked it off on the to-do list on the right-hand side of the screen. That is Caterium Logistics done. Next up is actually doing something with all the materials we have. So we should have Caterium flowing upstairs, we should have copper flowing upstairs. Now we need to do something with it. And the idea is to make fused quickwire and fused wire to get the ball rolling on that, but we might even have time to pop in the AI limiters and the cables as well. Alright, we're not messing around now. We're on the top floor. Endgame is in sight, finally. So I'm just going to climb up this temporary lookout tower to get an overall bird's eye view of the floor plan that I have in mind. We actually have a huge amount of space up here that's not going to be used right now, which is why I'm thinking maybe train station could be all over there, taking all these products and shipping them out across the map. Anyway, each of these colored blocks represents the surface area where all the machines are going to go, and each color denotes the sort of resource that they're going to be making. So here, we're going to be making wire. Now, we've got a very big block there, and that's because we're going to be using assemblers with an alternate recipe to make fused wire. So it's going to take in Caterium and copper ingots to make wire. Over here, we're going to use a standard recipe for just regular cable. So that's going to be constructors, rows of constructors. Here, we're going to have assemblers with a standard recipe again for AI limiters. I actually don't think there is an alternate for AI limiters. Could be wrong, but yeah. Anyway, and then finally, over here, we've got 3 blocks of assemblers, again, using an alternate recipe to make fused quickwire. So that's just quickwire. So let's just get started, though. I've actually left 2 little boxes up here with everything I should need. So if we go to our blueprints, machines, we've got assembler quickwire. So we're going to need 78. It's quite a lot. Now, if we have a look at the recipe just very quickly for this, no pun intended, this is what we're going to be using, the alternate recipe for fused quickwire, using Caterium ingots and copper ingots. 37.5. It's an interesting number, isn't it? Do we know why that's interesting? Do we remember why? Let's have a look. So, copper ingot. With our alternate recipe that we're using for all these refineries, we get 37.5 out of each individual refinery. So that's a perfect number that can then go into our quickwire, right? Into our assembler. So an assembler will take an exact output from one of those refineries, as long as you then supply it with the Caterium. So let's just start laying these out, and you'll see some... Well, I have to pick up the material, I guess. But we have 78 over on the right-hand side of the screen. People often ask, how do you know how much stuff you're going to need? We just add it to the to-do list, right? That's why here I press the pluses. It's in the to-do list. Now I know what I need. And obviously I just did this earlier. So now we have everything we need right here. And we're ready to go. Right, so just putting in a little floor there that we can work with. So, assembler, quickwire, turning off blueprint mode, pulling the outputs towards me. Always do that. Inputs on the inside. I'm just going to move it 1 layer in, or 1 grid space in. So we lock the hologram in place by pressing H, or whatever your hotkey of choice is. You can see down on the bottom of the screen, mine is mouse 4. People often wonder where you get these hotkeys from. It's literally on screen, just people don't really look at it, and I don't blame you. It's something I never looked at either. Okay, so that should be totally good. Our little wire doesn't go up that high. That's because we're going to run a beam across this in the future that will look like it's holding all the power in place. You don't want... That's not going to be the ceiling height, basically. Right, so just very quickly, this is a very simple assembler with the quickwire recipe already chosen. We have our floor hole that goes down 2 layers deep, 2 meters. I've added a sign on the side. Now, these are going to be slammed next to each other. It's going to be hard to see that sign, and it is extra work to go up to each sign and toggle in the number that you want for it. I just like doing that. I've got some weird... let's just say fetish for having signs on my machines, having the numbers, like listing all of them. It's cool to see, like, this is machine number 67 and 7 an issue, you know. I don't know, I just like that. Anyway, then we have our 2 inputs here at the back and at this color scheme for Caterium. We then have the productivity number on the top. Again, these are all actually going to be 100%. So the reason I mention this is you can always load up my blueprint if you wanted to use this in the blueprint designer. Just remove that, hit save, and then you've got no quartz requirement, and you don't have to update any signs, and, you know, you're good to go, really. Alright, so I just thought I would mention that. Anyways, we're just going to grab this blueprint, press R to lock onto them, or switch blueprint mode, I mean. And we don't have to count them out or anything, we're just going to go all the way to the very edge. Like so. This is what I was talking about, like you can't even barely see the numbers, but damn it, I'm going to update them all. Because that's just what you have to do. Alright. If you know, you know. Okay, cool. So there we go. So let's have a look at this now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13! So 13. What a magical number. Pop quiz. How many machines are in an individual row for our refineries down there? You're right. It's 13. So if we remember, 13, or sorry, if we remember, there's a row of 13 machines here and a row of 13 machines here. These have an output of 37.5 and these have an input of 37.5. What does that mean? What does that tell you? Now, we've got 6 rows of Caterium, 6 rows of Quickwire Assemblers. So what we can simply do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These 6 could all travel to 1 row each for Quickwire. Hopefully that's kind of simple. So it basically means that a row of refineries have the exact amount we need of copper for 1 row of Quickwire. Now, you might wonder, okay, well what about, have you been so, you know, cute by half with Caterium? Kind of, sort of. Let's take a look at this. This one's a little bit more tricky to work out. So we did Caterium just earlier in the episode, and along here we've 2 belts coming in, and then we send it down into our, you know, rows. We've got 6 rows making Caterium ingots, and if you remember, we combine all the rows together, right? So these are the outputs. So output 1, output 2, and just over there, output 3. So all the outputs merge onto a line, and then they travel over here, and they split 4 ways. Alright, so just remember that. And then obviously that happens the second time over there, because there's 6 rows in total. So that's 3 rows that split, and then they they merge, and then they split 4 ways. So 3 rows merge, and then they split 4 ways. Alright, so 12 is the standard that we get. There's 10 machines in a row, plus an 11th that's underclocked. So that means we have 30 machines, right, times 12, because they're all doing 12. We'll just put that in brackets. Plus the, you know, the 3 end machines that are doing 10 each. So that's just another 30. So we get 390. Alright, so 390 is being merged downstairs onto 1 belt. 390 divided by 4 is 97.5. Why 4? Because we split that into 4. Yeah? So downstairs we have 3 belts merging up, and then we split it into 4 to go up the glass cases and to look nice, and to be evenly going up those glass cases as well. And we do that on the opposite side as well. So every output here, there's 8 outputs, and each one is going to be carrying 97.5. Alright, remember that number, 97.5. Let's go back upstairs, and we'll have a look at our Quickwire Assemblers. Alright, so what does it take? It takes 7.5. 7.5. So we had 97.5 coming up from a floor hole. 7.5 times the 13 machines. Well, would you look at that? It's 97.5. How did we do that? How did we do that indeed? It doesn't matter. It's just math. So basically it just means now, rather nicely, all we have to know, all you need to know, if that all went over your head, is that 6 of these 8 outputs doing copper need to come over to our Quickwire machines, and 6 of the outputs doing Caterium need to go to the Quickwire machines as well. And that's all you got to do. Alright, looking damn fine. 78 machines across 3 blocks and 6 rows each. Needs their numbers to be adjusted and everything, but I love the color of these ones. Really, really happy with how they've kind of turned out. They look really good. Alright, so we're going to do the next set of assemblers. This would be assemblers here. Like I said, it's going to be AI limiters, but I don't have the steamed copper sheets up and running, the refineries for that, nor do I actually have the recipe for it, so we're going to leave that till a later date. We could just make AI limiters ourselves anyway, like really quickly. We don't need them really for handcrafting. We're not going to use them in any recipes for quite a while, so I think it's okay. But here, we're going to make wire. Blueprint mode. Anyway, knock it back one in the center. Bonk. So basically, exact same styling as the other ones, just different color scheme to denote that it makes something different. Quite like the way the sign blends really into the machine here, so really happy with how that kind of looks as well. That's why I'm just loving these signs. But yeah, as a similar problem to the Caterium, the output is so high, which is great, right? It's one of the best recipes for this, because the output is just so great. I'd say one of the other recipes that's really good for wire is just you can turn just iron ingots into wire, I think. I think that's one anyway. That's a pretty incredible one as well. Because there's far more iron on the map than there is copper. Now, some people have asked me, why do you need so much copper? 12,000 ingots per minute is what these refineries are all capable of producing. Well, as you can see, we're turning it into a variety of different things. But we'll actually have a lot of copper ingots just left over to assign in the future. It's a future-proofed build, hopefully. So the idea is we can figure that out later. But also, I know that we'll always need copper. Copper is something that's in very high demand in the game, just generally speaking. It goes into so many different components and lots of alternate recipes especially. 14, 15, 16, 17. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so 17 machines is what we need, and one of them, the furthest away from the other blocks that we've just done, will have to be underclocked to 50%. Then, the only difference on this is we'll only need 16 machines here. We won't need a 17th on the end. Alright, so I've gone ahead and quickly made a blueprint for Constructors, because I actually didn't have one before, so let's pop it down. So it should be as easy as just removing a couple tiles here and here. Dropping in our floor like so, and Constructor cables. So we're going to need 45 of them. 45. And I didn't really think about, actually, which direction. I guess we'll face their outputs out towards that way. All of them. And that'll just keep it consistent. So, yeah, let's lock it into the middle. And there should be a bit of a gap between the hologram and the edge on both sides. So there and there. Yeah, so 1 meter gap kind of all around. And we are center aligned with the foundation. Cool, let's lock it in. Gone with a sort of a grayish, kind of a gray color and a red trim to it. The Constructors actually come built in with a red kind of component. So I initially went with yellow, but then I just decided to complement the component that was in the Constructor already and go with red as a trim. That looks quite cool. Seeing as we're making cable, using a darker color for the machine itself I thought made sense also. Now, I haven't really thought about this, but does this work? Or does it come too far over? No, oh nice, it just lines up straight up. Yeah, sweet. I was worried it would come like one tile over or something, so yeah, let's just slam them all down then. Looks good. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we need 45 in total. We're using rows of 12. We'll explain that later with the logistics side of things, but let's just fill out these 3 rows, and then that 4th one is going to have a slight difference, slight less amount. Now the other thing that I've done with these is I've also added, of course, the number onto the edge, so that way we can actually look down the line of them, like so, and see all the numbers, which I think is kind of neat. Alright, so we're left with a little gap at the end there, but that's okay, at least they're all facing the same direction, and underneath it should be a little bit easier to work with then as well. Alright, so I figured that while I'm up here, I might as well make the blueprint for the AI limiters, because we know where they're going to have to go anyway, and even if we're not hooking them up right now, just good to have them in position, just get all these assemblers done and dusted. But I did realize that in placing these, I realized I made a mistake with a lot of these machines, but you won't have to make that mistake, hopefully, which is... it requires Mark II inputs, not Mark 1. I gave everything a Mark 1 input. So I'm going to have to run around them. I've just picked up a bunch of reinforced iron plates. I'm going to have to run around them all and just like mass upgrade them like this. Just go like slam, 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 slam. But then I'll have to paint them all as well. So, fun times. But anyways, at least just be aware of that if you've made it to this point in the video. The blueprints will be updated to be correct, but for some reason, just double check them before you slam them all down anyway. Okay, so yeah, for this it was different. I couldn't just look at the center point to space these out. Instead, they have to be placed, well, in a very specific way. The way to know if it's in the right spot is the corner should be just next to the dot. And the same on the other end. There's no spacing in between them. They just latch onto each other, but That's the kind of spacing that we're looking for here. So, yeah, I think I could just even maybe grab this and flip it, because they should just be back to back now, the way it was before. So once you get one in the right position, you can do the block rather easily. Alright, there we have it. So all the assemblers and the constructors are now in position, and that's actually it. Like, there's no more machines that are planned for this place. Apart from the steamed copper sheet refineries, that's basically it. Now, there's lots of room to add more in the future if we do end up bringing more copper into this place, or, God forbid, more Caterium. I doubt that'll happen, but it is the kind of thing where it's like, well, you do have a lot more floor space up here if you ever want to do something with it. But like I said, perhaps train stations would be the ideal thing to build over there to take all these materials out. I think I'll probably end up doing that. Alright, so the next thing is hooking all these bad boys up with the logistics. Alright, here we are. The end game. I've been mapping this up for a little bit. It is gonna get quite complicated. It's tough. There's a lot of volume that has to go to all these different places. But to get us started, we're gonna start underneath the Quickwire Assemblers, right? The alternate recipe for fused Quickwire. We have 78 assemblers above me here, split into 3 rows. So we got some new blueprints to work with to help us out, which is going to be the CC Assembler Logistics 2 and 4 meters. So basically, these line up right in the center of the central foundation underneath the inputs. We want to obviously rotate that around so we're feeding it away from myself. And we want to line it up with these. So we just hold it in place and move it over until we think we're aligned, which looks like there. Is that right? Man, it's actually hard to tell. No, I think there is correct. Yeah. Alright, so we go with that. Lock it in. I guess before I commit, I'm just not 100% sure, so I'll just... Yeah, we're good. Okay, good. Right, so we're locked in with that. Let's grab this blueprint. We'll lock onto itself, aiming in the same direction. And I can't remember the spacing for this, but it might just be 2. 1, 2. Yep, that looks good. Alright, and we just do that the whole way down. We've got to do this for each row, so we'll just do this again. Alright, so there we have it. So that's all of the lines of splitters ready to go to feed all of the assemblers up above. Of course, we're doing manifold, so each line is just going to be splitting and splitting, splitting all the way down to the very end. And all we have to do now is just hook them all up with Mark 1 lifts, because, yep, we don't need anything more than Mark 1. So it's going to be a little tedious. I'll actually probably start at the end and work my way just constantly stepping backwards. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Alright, all of the lifts are now in position and all of the belts have been cleaned up too. So, next would be the outputs. Now the outputs are actually going to be moving away from us as well. And that's because some of this area is going to be used for belts feeding in. So we need to clear a lot of space around the back and send the belts out and around this way, just to prevent them intersecting each other. That's because the volume is really high. And even with the floor as high as this, we'd be stacking belts really high up. So best just to keep them clear of each other. Alright, so again, I've got another blueprint for this, which is the assembler outputs. So what we want to do with these is basically just aim it away from ourselves. So whatever, about there. Line it up as such, but if we're directly under it, we need to just move over 1, 2, 3, just like that. And then we lock it in. The reason for that is then we can do this. So don't put any of the lifts into it yet. We'll talk about why there's 2 layers in just a moment, but instead what we're going to do is just line them all up, so get the direction to be correct, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that should line us up again. So it's a gap of 6 this time. Alright, there we go. So all the mergers are now in place. They don't have their lifts just yet, and that's because we've doubled them up. So we've doubled them up just to make it easier on ourselves to separate these belts, because we have 13 machines in each row, and each one is putting out 90 quick wires. That's 1,170, which is obviously too much for a single belt. The best belt we can ever get is 780, so 780 divided by 90 is 8.66 recurring. So that means that 8 machines is the most we can have on a single belt. So what we'll do is we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and chop them away, and say, see you later. And then with the final ones here, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and get rid of those. So let's just cut the belts now on the bottom, and here on the top. Right, so now we're left with a series of belts running along the bottom, and they're going to basically fill up. Oh, did I get rid of... Oh, my bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoops. Got rid of one, didn't I? Alright, so what we're left with now is 8 machines' outputs in a row, all being merged onto one single line. So 8 times 90 is going to be 720. So it doesn't quite fill up a full Mark V belt, but don't worry about that for now. So 720. Then we're left with a separate line, the remaining 5 machines. So that's going to be 5 times 90, doing 450. So 720, 450, all heading out towards this direction. I've just done the same now for this line right here. So the exact same, 8 machines along the bottom, 5 machines along here. So same situation. Now we're not going to do the same on this block or this block. We're just going to focus entirely on this one for now, because this is going to be heading towards the AI limiters. So this Quickwire is reserved for AI limiters. The other Quickwire doesn't have any designation yet at all. So I'll just type in AI limiter, and we can have a look that it requires 100 Quickwire per minute. We made 24 AI limiter machines. We made 24 of them. So that's 2,400. Now, there is 26 machines in a block. So 26 times 90, because they all put out 90, is 2,340. Right, so we're aiming to send over 2,400 Quickwire. So 2,340. We're short 60, right? So this block almost provides everything we need. Almost, but we're short 60. So what I'm probably going to do is grab one of the outputs from here, and we'll get to that in a moment, but just one of the outputs, and split it 3 ways. So that'll be a 90 output, split 3 ways, and that gives us 30. And then we'll send 2 of those 30s into 2 of the shorter belts that we have, right? So this one and this one, because they're doing 450 each. And then we're going to send it down towards the AI limiters and feed them all in. So that's the idea. So this block is reserved for that, and that's how we get our 2,400. Right, so I wanted to trim some of the fat because I felt like it was getting a little hard to follow. So I just removed everything that's not necessary. So we'll just go through it again really quickly. So all the mergers, you know, the bottom line is going to be the 720 line. That just smoothly goes in, curls around, and it's going to be heading down that way. The top bit, which is going to be 450, is traveling along, and it goes into here where there's a merger, right? So we're anticipating that we're going to feed in an additional 30. Now, to avoid crossing belts, I've had to just like lower it down naturally just from this kind of conveyor pole to there. All right, so this just feeds along, and then it's waiting to get its initial 30. And the same is happening for here, right? This one's waiting to get its 30. That's the merger equivalent on the 450 belt. So our other 720 belt, totally fine. Just goes into the far side and just wraps around that far side. But this one is the little different bit. So what I want to do is grab one on from the end here. So we'll pop in a merger on top here. Although I guess technically it doesn't even need a merger, but we'll just, because it's going to be on its own. So there's 90 going to be coming down, going into this merger. And now what we'll need to do is line up with our belts here. And go up to 3. Now we want to pop a splitter on it, right? So splitter is going to be there. So just get rid of this bottom bit, not needed. Right, so we just have a splitter floating there. Mark 3 out of our minds, going straight in there. The first output, which is going to be just 30, is going right over there. So that's the initial 30 joining in. The next one is going to be coming out here and going down. It's unfortunate though the way the... Right, so I was looking at the splitter thinking, okay, how do I bring this belt over here without that weird curve? And this is a bit strange, but just bear with me. We'll use an elevator or a lift, and if we line it up just here, it should... Actually, we need to line it up even just further over. There, right? So that's in line with where our target is. And then we bring it up, and it'll auto-snap into here. Then we grab onto this bit and flip it around. Yeah? Totally fine. Right, and then we send it over. So it's a bit weird, but at least it keeps us at 90-degree angles, no strange bends or whatever. But it is very weird. The important thing, though, ultimately is that the 90 that comes out here, it's been split so that 30 is going that way, 30 is going this way, and the only way that will be true is if we have a continuous 30 going out this way. Not that it would be a problem if we send too much anyway, but just to denote that this needs to, you know, go somewhere. We'll just leave it like that for the moment. But yeah, so that's basically it. So a bit messy, not gonna lie, that one is a little bit messy, but we'll just cut these as well now. So that's what we're left with, right? So we have basically the 26 machines all moving along now on 4 belts by the end. So it's just 4 belts by the end, with the bottom 2 doing 720 each, and the top 2 doing 450 plus 30, so 480. So 480, 480. Right, and we'll send that down towards the AI limiters. Alright, so here's the next problem. With the remaining Quickwire, we have 4,620, and that's because we have 2 blocks of 26 making 90, minus the 60 we're taking away from it, so we're left with 4,620. So 4620 divided by 780 will be 5.923, etc. So, bit of an awkward number, but it does mean we could fill up 5 belts with 780, and then have a little weird belt with a little leftover, an odd number kind of left over. Provides a bit of a challenge though. Trying to get up to 780 is quite difficult when your output is 90. It would require a lot messing around, so I'm just going to try and figure that out and see how many belts we can fit this on. Sometimes I feel the need to take a little break and look off into the distance, to the serene tranquility that is just the jungles, the horizon, and the unknown, what lies beyond. It's a moment of quiet reflection when I realize that I've basically bitten off more than I can chew and can't really explain it in terms of a video, so all I can do is apologize. There's no easy way to say this, but everything works, the numbers are all fine, but it is just almost impossible to explain without going like into an hour-long diatribe about how to do this. But I'll try to break it down as quickly as possible. So we had our first group here, that's all well and good. We know that 2400 Quickwire is going to be going off and traveling down that series of belts right there. Okay, that required the 26 machines, all of their outputs, to be kind of sorted onto 4 belts, and I tried to do it as evenly as possible, with 720 on the bottom belts and 480 on the top belts. We got 480, of course, by doing a little splittery, if you want to call it that, right? Splitting a little bit here, basically grabbing one extra 90 and breaking it into 3 components of 30, and then sorting that out onto the belts, right? That's how we did that. So fair enough. Now, using that same principle, I've gathered all of the rest of the Quickwire and done the same thing. It's just the same principle over and over, but it's very complicated to kind of explain bit by bit. So what was happening as I was doing it is, it effectively follows the same pattern, right? We always have 8 machines on the bottom being gathered, and that travels along the bottom onto a belt of 720. And then there is 4 machines that gathers and travels onto a belt of 360. And then we have the outlier, the one that's the odd one, where we get 90 from it, and we have to break it down into a 60 and a 30. So we have to split it 3 ways to get 30, 30, 30. We merge 2 of the 30s back to get 60, and then we put them back onto the belts. So the 60 goes onto the bottom, right? The bottom has 720, so the 60 always goes onto that. So that's why we have 720. Somewhere along the line, you know, the 60 goes onto that, and it becomes 780. The remaining 30 goes onto the 360 belt to give us 390, and that gets sent further down to also get merged up with an excess 30 that happens later on down the line. So I probably need to add a bit more squares, or not squares, square signs, a bit more signage to let us know which belts are doing what. But what we have by the end of it, okay, what I have by the end of it is a belt of 780, 780, 780, 780, 780, and 720. So I'm really happy that we can get that all on one belt at the end, and it's just by doing the same principle over and over again, which is 8 along the bottom, 4 along the top, and an outlier that we split to kind of help them all out. But it looks horrendous, right? I know. I'm sorry. It looks horrendous. I just had no idea when doing this build that dealing with volume would be so arduous, because I've done it before, but I always thought like the most difficulty in the game from complexity comes from having lots of different goods combining together. So I just, again, have to apologize for this build. I mean, at least I haven't made any mistakes. It's just horrendous to have to build along with. So the save file will be out there. You can see what's doing everything, and I will be going over these just to really denote what every belt is carrying every time it gets something merged onto it, because there is gaps right now. It's not fully making sense, but I, at least in my head, know it right now. So yeah, but something I wanted to work out then, I was like, okay, so, well, you can see it right here. So we've got 5 belts of 780, which is 3900, plus that 720 on the bottom gives us 4620. And that's the right number. 4620 was the number I was looking for. I was worried that things weren't lining up, but 4620 is the amount of quickwire that we have at our disposal, or will do when we get to Mark 5 belts, of course. That we can do whatever we want with, right? That's what we have per minute to travel into, or to send into other factories in the future. The other 2400, so if we just go plus 2400, is going into our AI limiters. So that gives us a total quickwire production of 7,020, 78 machines times, how much 90 is 7,020. So that's how we get those numbers. So I want to go through here, do some painting, add some signs to really clear this up. So this save file will be available probably before I do the cosmetic overhaul on a stream, where we really go in and just like paint a few things and make things look a bit better. But I'll update the same save. So if you're really eager, you're here early and you play along as the game gets, or as I upload this save, then you might be a little bit, you'll be maybe a little confused. But after the cosmetic run, then it'll just be a couple days later. That same save file will just be updated so everyone can like grab a more finished, polished version if you want it. But anyway, the idea now is just to travel these stacked belts further down this way, and we've only got 6 rather than 8, so it says it's still using the blueprint that says 2x4, but we can get rid of the ones on top, just the very top bits, because it's just going to be 6 belts, and I believe it's this one that will be the 720. And what do we do with them? I don't know. You know, that's for the future to decide. All I know is that we have 4,620 at our disposal. Now, in doing the AI limiters, I'm going to queue these up so it's pretty much ready to go, but I don't think we'll feed them in just yet. Alright, so let's actually hook up the logistics for AI limiters. I was thinking like, nah, we don't really need to, but we might as well while we're here. So we have 720 quickwire traveling along the bottom 2 belts, and 480 quickwire traveling along the top 2. So let's just travel along these belts and get over to our destination, which I've done a little bit of prep work over there, just to work out exactly how we're going to deliver this material. So we've got 2 blocks here of 24 assemblers, right? So 12 in each. So 6 on either side. So 6 and 6, 6 and 6. And that means that we can just put down our regular CC assembler logistics blueprint. Doing that twice basically will sort us out for lining up with the center, just like it did over here, right? They're assemblers. We've done it, laid it out the exact same in the blueprint designer. So that way we can just use the same logistics blueprint for different types of things. Okay, so that's all lined up and laid out for us, but the difference is this. So we had 480 traveling along the top and 720 traveling along the bottom. An assembler for AI limiters takes up 100 quickwire per machine. So let's say we're traveling along the bottom, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, so that's 600 quickwire gone, and then we curl around into the final one, number 7. Now this is a smart splitter because we're left over with 20. So what we're going to do is send out on the left side overflow. So overflow is going to come out here and have to join in to this side. This is where it gets a little bit messy. The 480 is traveling up on top. So let's just send this 720 in first off, just to see how that plays out, right? So here's our 720. In it goes. Now we have a 480 belt up here looking to get into there. I don't want to send it into here, even though it would line up nicely. I'm not sure how the copper sheets are going to be divided up and if that's going to get messy, and then the inputs are on the different sides. It just seems like that would confuse things more than just bringing the belt down a little bit. So that's what we're going to do instead. So in order to do that, I'm going to put down the stackable again here, covering up the pole that we just dropped. Now we'll just drop that pole right there. Right, so now this can come down and go 2 over, come up to here, and just go in. Alright, so there's our 480 in this way. So 480 is now going to be feeding along, and it just ends, right? So this machine is the 5th one. It should be getting the the 500 on the end of the belt, but because we only have 480, it's going to run a little short. We have that excess 20 right here to close the loop. Now, we can't feed in a belt into a splitter. I really would love it if you could get merger splitter hybrids. It'd be so cool. I was thinking, a lot of people have said like programmable splitters should do more than they currently do in the game. They filter things, which is fine, but I'd love it if there was another tier above that called like super splitter, where you can like program the amounts that a belt can have, and maybe even like an ultra splitter or whatever that even says I can decide what's an input and an output. That'd be pretty sweet. Dynamic splitter, I guess, or something like that, you know? Anyways, a way around it is quite simply just grab a merger. These are 10 indents across. So if we just go across 5, which seems like it'll be in the center here, I don't think we can actually latch onto anything, so I'll just hold control, because I tried this before, and doing this normally would give me an anchor point, and I can see the green line and everything, but it's just not snapping. I'm holding control, just not doing it. Sometimes it just doesn't like it. So I'll just aim till we get there, I guess. The belt flickered, which means we're good to go. We'll grab a belt from here, drag it in there. Bada bing, bada boom. The excess 20 overflow, so this has to get completely backed up before that 20 can then start making its way over. And it's just going to go into this merger, and has one direction, so it's only going to feed to that last machine anyway. So yeah, so that should be it. That's one block effectively done. Obviously, we have to draw down the actual inputs and outputs. So we're going to need Mark II inputs. And it's going to be every second one, so it's going to be like that. And then the other ones are just going to be Mark 1. So that's how we do it. That's how we'll do this block. I'm going to do it on the other side now, and that'll be that. Right, so I'm just in the ventilation floor at the Caterium area. This is where the glass cases are down below, and the 8 Caterium belts travel upwards through the glass cases and through the floor hole onto the actual logistics floor. I forgot that we didn't actually send the Caterium where it needs to go, so that's what we're doing now. So of these 8 slots, 6 of them are actually needed for the Quickwire, and 2 of them are needed for the regular wire, which will be here. So these 2 I'm leaving in reserve. We're actually right below the outputs of the wire, so a little danger close, but it should be straightforward enough because they can actually all be on one belt. All the Caterium and all the copper can serve both of these blocks. Their inputs all on one belt each. So that's pretty good. And I say each for the resource, not for each block. One belt can carry around both blocks. So quite nice. So it should be easy enough to do that. But we have to navigate our belts down towards the Caterium area, the Quickwire. So I'm just working on that now. So basically, 6 of these floor holes will come up at their respective heights to match the stackable belts 2x4. Now only 6 are needed, so I'm getting rid of the bottom 2, the ones that were there and there. And we're going to travel these along. They also only need to be Mark II, so I can kind of go, I've already done that one, go around and just upgrade these like that as we push on down. So I'm just going to bring it all the way down, connect these up, and then show you what the difference is or what needs to be done when we get there. Okay, so we're now traveling all the way down from where the Caterium ingots come up. Going all the way down in a big maze of metal. Oh, there's actually a gap between these. I'll have to connect that in a sec. But anyway, we take a turn here, down the very center of this corridor. So this side is reserved for feeding some of the Quickwire into the AI limiter machines. These are all of our Quickwire machines. So to feed Caterium into them, we need to leave a gap because copper is also going to be traveling along, and the copper is going to be higher up. We're going to aim for the bottom bits. Hopefully that should mean that we're not crossing any paths. I think so anyway, but if not, we'll have to just raise them, I suppose. So anyway, starting here, 1, 2, and basically every time we get close to it, so we're 2 indents in, so let's say, and that's 1 indent in. Let's say 2 indents in here as well. So we're going to have to lower down now, bit by bit, as we go across. And that, I think, should make us avoid the copper. So we'll start with the top one, see if my theory works. Yeah, so we come down to here, and then into there. So that does leave some space for the copper to flow in overhead. Not much space, granted, but I suppose what we could do is get this. Something like that. Would that work? That might be too much of an angle, so maybe we'll start again, 2 indents in. Yeah, so that gives much more clearance now, and then you can go in like that. So hopefully the copper can just travel over that. So it's a bit squiggly, a little bit squiggly, but we're traveling straight down at least. So easy enough to kind of map and follow. Then this one can just go straight across. Actually, hang on, have I messed up now? No, the bottom one will travel along the bottom. Yeah, that's totally fine. All right, cool. So yeah, this one goes into there. Right? And then the final one, go to here, down to here, go across, and then ultimately, I think, where are we aiming? All the way over here. It's going to have to come back up, but that's the only way I could figure to do it, and keeping out of the way of the copper. Maybe we'll go to 1, 2 indents in, and then up and over. That's the only time we're actually ever traveling a belt on the ground, but I was thinking about it. I just couldn't figure out a way to do it without having to raise all of these by one, so hopefully that's okay. So yeah, we don't need these. So anyway, we just match that now on this side, so... Woo! Alright, that's Caterium fed. Caterium ingots are fed into all the machines, just like that. Alright, remove that. Yeah, so I'll just have to make sure these belts are going at the right speed, Mark II. Have to go get some more reinforced iron plates. Those look a little strange, but somewhat kind of nice. But yeah, a little bendy. It's like curving in weird areas. It flattens out when it hits the poles, I guess. And then I have to connect them as well. The next thing then we'll be doing copper, so I'm going to do that next. And then that will be the Quickwire completely set up. Then we do the wire, then the cable, and then that's it. So, very quickly, I wanted to correct the record about something. These are the assemblers for wire. And if you remember earlier in the episode, I said to place one odd one out here on the end. Not to make it symmetrical. I was wrong. We do need to make it symmetrical, and we're going to go one further than that, actually. That'll make things line up a little bit better. Which is to say that we'll actually just fill in the entire block. Like so. Now, these first ones here, these are the first machines, but I want these ones to be the underclocked ones. Or do I? You know what? No. We'll underclock the ones on the end. So we're going to run all the way down to the end. For machine number 17 on each row. Yeah, because just thinking about it, if we're going to turn these on slowly, no point having the first one be underclocked. It's only for when we hit 780. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. What we're going to do is go down to 25%. I hit copy on that. Just copy again, just in case. Alright, so 25%. Lock that in on the final one. On each row. And I'll tell you the reasoning for this in just a sec. So that gives us an... Well, that didn't work. Yeah, there we go. Alright, 25%. So 25% underclocked for the last 4 machines. Each machine on each row. So if you remember, each row has 16 machines. So therefore, each block has 32. The requirement for Caterium is 3. Yeah, so 3 Caterium ingots. So it's a total of 96. But then if we add on our 0.75 and our 0.75 that we're getting out of the 2 end machines... That brings us to a nice and even 97.5. If you remember, the outputs, I suppose, from the floor holes downstairs are each 97.5. So that's how we get 2 nice blocks using all of our Caterium ingots. Alright, we're done. All the inputs are ready to go. I actually changed it to Mark I belts, because that's actually all we need, and I've been hurting for reinforced iron plates lately. Okay, so here's our 2 remaining outputs. It's worth mentioning, all of these do 97.5. They're all heading down now. I upgraded everything to have Mark II belts, so we're all good. That's obviously going towards the Quickwire, the Quickwire area. It's carrying Caterium. Okay, so what we'll do now, 1, 2, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4. These will actually have to be Mark II, because they're each carrying 97.5. And I reckon, grab our stackable, and we go 1, 2 here. Line these guys up together. And these can go pretty far down, actually, so we want to get in the middle here somewhere. 1, 2. Let's just do this first bit first, just to make sure we have the right idea. So we'll go Mark II to there. Mark II to there. Then we grab our splitter. Stack it up twice. Send that in. change now to Mark 1, send that in. And that one too. So there we go, we can get rid of this. Right, so we're still left with a belt on top, in theory. So our Mark 2 belt here. And we're now going to send that, I guess, all the way over here, and then we can bring it down just beforehand. So once it gets to the center point, right about there. 1, 2. Guess to make that an even foundation's width. No, it's actually not, sorry. I'm going to bring it there. No again, sorry. There, yeah. That's now 1 foundation width. Yeah. Not that it really matters, but it might make the curve look a little bit better, or the decline. Right, Mark 2. Let's bring that up. There we go, bring him down there. There's our splitter, and we just do the same thing, right? We feed it in, we switch to Mark 1, feed that in, and feed that in. And that should be all of the Caterium that we can possibly ever make in this place is now being hooked up to go somewhere. The Caterium ingots. Copper ingots, not so much. We have outputs that are located here, here, and here. And there's also a 4th one over there somewhere that I haven't actually brought up through this floor yet. But there's 4 glass containers, as it were, bringing things up here. But I think I'm going to go with that group, because why not? Yeah, it makes sense to me. Leaving these 2 nearest to where the possible train station might go to carry it out somewhere else, and using the ones that are in the factory kind of to do stuff with. So yeah, the 8 outputs over there, we're going to have to feed into both the Quickwire area and now the wire area. Alright, so it took me a little while just to kind of figure out a solution that I thought was kind of neat. So we have 2 belts here on the bottom. These are the ones we need to lose, or at least send into the initial groupings here of wire. So one travels down to the bottom, goes into a lift, goes up and over, and then out into the first kind of grouping here, the first block of wire machines. The next one, the inside belt here, does the very same thing. It just takes a lift that's... Ooh, actually just spotted something. That should be a Mark 3. Takes a lift here, goes up and over, and it goes all the way down and into the second grouping of machines. Now, I kind of cut it out because I was playing around for a while, but the Caterium that's traveling along here, this used to turn on the center of the foundation, now turns on just a little further out. So I basically just moved it over the width of one stackable pole to allow for a stackable pole of copper to come down the middle and still have room to turn. I didn't change where the splitters are or any of the belts off of them. It was just literally pushing this all out once. Didn't take very long. But it just felt like it needed to move if we wanted to give room for that copper to come in. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, as you can probably see by the runtime in the video, there's just no way I can get this done today. Again, I can't believe it. I said that this was going to take 2 videos, and we're pushing 5, and some of these are multiple hours long, so I've just obviously vastly overestimated. You guys are right. People told me when I announced this project, they were like, don't you think it's a bit big? And for some reason in my silly little head, I thought, you know, using blueprints, volume wouldn't really be an issue. I didn't factor in the complications with logistics, moving belts in and over each other and all that. That's really where the time sink feels like it's gone. And the volume, I guess, of bringing in that number of material, you know. I thought because it was just copper and Caterium, it wouldn't be that difficult, because I've done many builds where you got many ingredients. Many. Like, there's so many dependencies of multiple factories, trains coming in, gases coming in, liquids, all this different stuff. So I kind of thought, like, what's so difficult about just bringing in high volume 2 assets? You know, it can't be that bad. And with blueprints, we should be able to scale up the volume quite quickly. Terrible idea. Shouldn't have done it so early in the series. Just eager, I guess, over eager. But I'm really looking forward to doing some smaller projects for a while. We're going to go into a live stream and finish off this factory. I'm going to give out the save file as regularly as I can, updating the place and finishing things off. I think during recording I was looking at this thinking there's no way people are going to even be able to follow. Like, it's just so complicated, like moving all the belts around. Just the belt work just looks like a mess. How can you orientate yourself and follow it? So because of that, I was like, look, I don't have time really now. It's the second night in a row I've gone into like past midnight. I don't have time to finish off the cable machines. I've done some temporary wiring where we've got things hooked up. I want to turn things on. We've never turned on Caterium before. It's also extra dark in here. It's kind of interesting because someone in my Discord posted that it was darker than what they saw in my game. Mine's doing the same now. They said when they updated their drivers it fixed. Maybe I'll look into that. Anyways, so what we've got now is an assembly override. So that's just the assembly floor that'll power everything on up there, almost everything that we can manage. Hopefully I can actually manage it with the current production that we have, because there's a lot of assemblers up there, each one 15 megawatts. So what we're going to do now is we're going to begin. We're going to release... No, we don't want to release the belts yet. We want to turn on the water. So the water extractors are going to begin. And we're also going to turn on refinery block X, Y, and Z. Now, remember, of course, we don't have the belt speed to actually run all of the machines, so I've severed the wires after about 6 or 7 refineries in, similar to the copper, just as much as we could actually feed with water. So these machines should be running now. Alright, so the water has been running for a little while. I've had to do a little bit of troubleshooting, so I forgot with some of the refineries that we've hooked up that I haven't actually cut the cables between them, so a block of 26 is like fully powered on, and it'll wait until all of the material gets fed into all 26. So that would take far too long. We can actually only use the first 5 or 6 machines in each row anyway, so I've just had to go around, cut those belts, cut those pipes, and then I forgot to hook up some of the pumps to power, so everything was pretty much ready to go, but not everything was working. Now the Caterium side of things actually seems to be going great. It was just some of the leftover copper that I never quite got done. So what I'm actually missing here is block L needs to go online, and so does M. So we are shooting now above our max consumption line, which is rather worrying, but I suspect we're not going to tip over it because we're well under everything being utilized. I just don't think everything is going to get utilized. We'll see. We'll see. There's some stuff like some of the assemblers are connected, but I don't think we'll receive anything. I'll have to see. So the water extractors should be good to go now, and the machines should be basically primed. L and M won't be totally primed yet, but we could get the ball rolling, I reckon. So let's go with water extractor X, Y, Z. So block X, Y, Z. Let's release the Caterium. We can have a look at that flowing now. And just like that, we can see immediately it's flowing up. So cool. All right, let's go upstairs and see if we've made any mistakes along the way. And by we, I mean you specifically, because it ain't nothing to do with me. Alright, look at this. We're racing ahead of it. So I swear I haven't turned these on. This has all just been done today, so I'm just hoping against all hope that this is working correctly. Seems to be working fine. And they're going to go up to our first batch of refineries. It's exciting stuff. Meanwhile, the copper is getting primed right now. We'll activate that in just a moment. Alright, split 3 ways between the... well, a block and a half, right? 3 rows and then another 3 rows down that other way. Ah, so this is something I didn't do here. I didn't cut the water down this way. Oh, I did. I didn't cut the actual belts, though. So if we're only going that far, this is what I was talking about. We just need to cut these ones just to make sure we don't end up backfilling a little bit too far. Now, those are the machines that turned off anyway, so it wouldn't delay too badly, but might as well just cut that there just to prevent some time wasting at the moment, but at least it's working. So what we should start seeing is, oh, look at it in its shiny glory. Yes, Caterium ingots are traveling down. I know it's bittersweet because the factory is, I'm just turning it on just to see that this works, but it is nice seeing it come online for the first time. This is pretty cool. And then it's going to travel up the glass cases. So I guess we'll run upstairs and take a look at that. It's obviously super dark. This is why we need a cosmetic stream, plus finish the factory stream. But pretty cool. And obviously it's just going to be piecemeal for a little bit, but soon enough it should be rolling up to 97.5 on each belt. They're Mark III belts at the moment, so really turning them down to Mark II would probably be ideal. But we'll leave it as is just for now. Alright, we're back up on logistics. I need to see now... Actually, we need to go up even higher. We're sending... Oh, look! Yes! That's so cool! You can see little pieces of Caterium flowing along. Oh, they're evenly spaced. I love it. Oh, I love it so much. Yes, that's so good. Oh, look at them go. Oh, so good. I'm so happy about that. That's so, honestly, so, it's made my day. I don't know if that's sad or what, but it's taken such a long time. Now, they're stopping just before they go in. So we'll have to find out what's going on there.
I hope the floor holes aren't busted. I'm hoping it's just a power connection issue or something. I didn't actually check. Oh yeah, we didn't turn on the assembler floor. That's why. This may just trip the whole thing, but we'll see. Alright. So that's the assembler floor override. I've just basically hooked up a very temporary wire that just goes up there and powers all the machines I think we'll need. So we'll just go all the way to the top now. And we should see these guys starting to receive at least Caterium, right? But they won't power on. Oh, there it is. Look at that. How good is that? Now the Quickwire that flows down, this is where it gets really disappointing. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not even really going to flow for very long because I ran out of steel. I have to make some more runs to get more steel. I'm sure I have some by now. But yeah, we should just see the belts fill up to like here, basically. So that'll be it. But at least the belts will just fill with Quickwire and it'll look kind of nice. But yeah, I'm not running them all the way down anywhere at the moment. Now, we won't actually make that until the copper gets rolling. So we have to check on that and see how that's doing, making its way down here as well. It looks damn fine though. We can see a lot of copper running, moving up, slowly moving over there though. Too slow, I would say. Mark III belt. Ah, there's your problem there. Mark 1. These are all Mark 1. They need to be 3. I'll have to fix that as well. That's another issue for another day. Those are Mark 3. There's so many issues everywhere, bud. God damn. That's more like it, huh? Now, obviously, this one's looking a little sus. There must be something wrong with that side of things. But these are looking a lot better. We've obviously let them release their pent-up anger. And it looks like they have. They are moving up nicely here. Flowing along. Good. Now these bottom ones are the ones that break off. One on the left's not doing anything actually yet, but that one breaks off. Oh my god, look at this! The place is just full of wire. It's got nowhere to go. It's already full. Wow. Yeah, that's where it ends. It just ends there. You made it first, buddy. You made it first. If you just empty out your inventory and just pick that one up, you could be like, that's the first spool of wire we made in this factory, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that took an alternate recipe, and it took combining Caterium and wire. I gotta say, the Caterium is playing very nicely, but clearly I've made mistakes with copper, which was harder to do, right? Because there's so much more of it, so mistakes are more prone to happening. But that's so good. I'm so happy about that. Now, the last thing is just seeing if we've made any Quickwire. I can see copper. I can see it. It's just arrived. It has just arrived, and it is flying into the machines now. Yes! Yes! So good! I can't believe it works all of this time. It's pure guesswork. I'm so excited to see it working. Oh, yes! So happy. Oh, there's the Quickwire. Can barely get out. It's so thick. And do we have Mark II belts leading down? We do. Alright, first batches of Quickwire being made. Oh my god, look at that. Look at that. And that's all going into the AI limiter area. But of course, we do not make the steamed copper sheets yet, so it's just going to sit here and wait. But it has filled those belts to the brim. Our little overflow system is all working. So good. Love it. So happy with this. Honestly, it's made it all. I was getting a little down today with how much work is going on and how little progress in terms of videos I was making. And it's so funny to see that this has just cheered me right up. To see that it's actually working, I think it's kind of cool. I'm pretty happy about that. So that's going to have to be it really for this video. You know, we've proven the concept. It does work. Truck deliveries, delivering in here. Now the test of running it efficiently, that's another matter entirely. And we really won't know for certain unless I do a few little hacks and we progress ourselves to tier 5, ramp the factory up. Might do that on stream. I think that'd be quite fun to do. And that way we could just foolproof test the factory, give out the save, make sure it all works. Alright, that's going to have to be it. Thank you very much for watching. Apologies I didn't get the factory done, and sorry for doing something so massive. I promise the next factory is going to be in scope, and hopefully we can bring in some new people again. And this won't be a factory I depend on too much, so it's one of those ones where I'll advise people that to recreate it by using the save, follow these videos. I'm very happy that at least very little has had to be done over. Almost nothing, I would say. So at least there's no mistakes. It's just been a very big build. But yeah, quartz factory, home base, storage facilities, oil, lots to do, and I'll be scoping it a little bit better, like I said. So looking forward to it. And just thank you again to all the support you guys have been giving me, and also to those sponsoring the video, because they've allowed me to kind of balloon these up into very large videos that would normally not really be justifiable on their own. So yep, that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.